Good evening. Welcome to the June 28, 2021 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The time is now 7:06, and I, Tim Martin, call this meeting to order. I'd like to remind our members in the audience that this meeting is being broadcast live by NCTV and is also being recorded for future broadcast. Before we begin, I would ask that we conduct a roll call for attendance.
Tim Martin,
Present?
Joe Sebastiano,
Present.
Josie Kordahi,
Present.
and David Axberg.
Present. Thank you. Our first application, our first public hearing tonight that I'd like to open is 8 West Birch Road, and I see that we have the applicant, Mr. John Drill, in the audience. If you'd like to join us and have a seat at the microphone, please do.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. I know you applied months ago, back in the winter, for several variances. You want to get us up to speed on what the request is, and we'd be happy to entertain it.
So basically, there are two different sets of variances. I believe is it 3 in total, Rich, or is it just 2?
It's 3.
So one set of variances is to, I can't remember if it's 2 for the deck and 1 for the porch.
2.
It's 3 variances concerning 2 structures. One structure is a deck that was constructed without a permit, which we are seeking to keep, which we require a variance for. And the second is for permission to build a screen porch over an existing concrete pad.
And if you wanted to help us describe the lay of the land, the frontage, and the uniqueness of the property?
So one of the issues that we had with regard to both structures was that the lot line is not at all where we thought it was. When we purchased the house, we had documents indicating that our front lot line was right around the area of what we thought was our garage, relatively close to the street. As it turns out, the actual lot line is much further back near the house and has an odd curved shape, which is apparent on the plot plan that we submitted to the zoning board. So that means that there is about, I'm just going to go ballpark, probably a 25 or 30 foot difference between what we thought the front lot line was and what it actually is at the significant dimension that, in the I guess that's the southwestern corner of the lot. Also, just in terms of the general topography, it's a very oddly shaped lot in that it's triangular, but a section is kind of cut off near the road, and the house is sort of in the corner there. Basically, anything, there's very little that we could do to the house that would not violate one of the existing zoning setbacks in some way. The side yard there, which is on the north side of the house, is where the septic tank is located. The east side of the house, which is the top part of the plot plan that we have here, is an extremely steep hill that climbs, I think that at its narrowest point, it's about 6 feet away from the back of the house. So the deck and the screen porch, or the existing deck and the proposed screen porch, are pretty much in the only place on the lot that they could be constructed, because everything else is rather difficult in terms of topography or pre-existing things like the septic tank.
So there were three requests, two variances for the deck. It was formerly I'll call it a roof deck.
That's correct. When we moved in, and again, this is going back to when we believed that the garage was actually on our property, there was there was a deck that had been constructed on top of the garage that was in pretty bad shape. I think it was I don't recall exactly, but I believe it was in 2016 or 2017. We repaired the roof on the garage, which had failed at that point, and removed the deck. And then what we did is the following year, when we had enough money, we ended up constructing a different deck that was back further towards the house. And so that's the long and the short of how the deck got built where it was.
So it looks like, excuse me, it looks like you want to relocate the deck so it's less non-conforming, but it requires 2 variances, one for setback and one for side yard. And it looks like the request for the screen porch is, I'll call it a de minimis request for a side yard, less than 1 foot variance from side yard requirement.
That is correct. When we moved the deck back towards the house, we believed that it was going to be, more in better conforming to the zoning setbacks, and obviously, it's after the fact that we discovered the issue with our front lot line. So we thought we were bringing something more into conformity, and it turns out, I guess technically we were, but it was still non-conforming because of our lot line issues. When it comes to the variance for the proposed screen porch, we're only violating the side setback by, I believe, 9 inches. So if not for 9 inches, we would be applying for a special permit instead.
Okay. Yeah, so it's just for clarification, I think the roof, well, I'll call it the roof deck, was probably located within the right-of-way, clearly a setback issue, because it didn't have any setback, or very little, it was in the right-of-way, and now the applicant would like a variance to move it back further, so it's less non-conforming, and has requested relief that way. So I'll open it up to the board.
Yeah, point of clarification. The deck that's built there now,
Yes.
the rebuilt deck, are you not rebuilding it again, are you? That's the deck?
No.
Okay, yeah, so we're actually trying to see if he can have a variance for the deck as he's rebuilt
Right, I
it.
called,
Okay, yeah, okay,
right.
okay, thank you. That
Yep.
helps my question.
Just for clarification, when did the town or whoever take the road access, when did that happen? Where the garage is no longer on your property?
I have no idea. The house was, I believe, built in 1976, and the garage, if you were ever to take a look inside, it looks like it's at least from that era. And so, I mean, I would have to guess at least 50 years ago, if not earlier.
Okay.
Trying to think about the time, what ended up happening in terms of the road becoming a public way. It was similar in terms of they accepted a bunch of roads in town, essentially as is, so there wasn't these survey instrument meets and bound descriptions that took place. They did more of a blanket acceptance, and this happens to be one in terms of, accepting a road as a public where there's actually structures within it. So just to kind of, how does this happen, so to speak? There was a blanket acceptance, which is not unusual, but you get what you get in terms of
So
the town.
can you use the garage today?
So you mean structurally?
Yeah, are you using it? I mean,
Just for storage. It's a relatively small garage. I think it was intended as a boat garage. And so I think that we have a couple of bikes and kayaks and a snowblower in there. So it's, the concrete needs pretty significant repair, which we've, held off on for obvious reasons related to the property line. But we do use it for storage, but nothing all that significant.
Okay, I was just curious.
And just remind us about the existing concrete pad for the screen porch, kind of the unique shape of that, and why you need a variance as opposed to a special permit.
So in this particular case, the pad, I don't know when the pad was actually laid down. It could be as old as the house. It could be slightly newer than that, but it's still been there for, from the looks of things, at least for a few decades. And it comes out from the house, and I think on its own, the pad slightly violates the existing side setback because it's 24.2 right to that far corner there. And so what we'd like to do is, what you can see on the plot plan here is that there are these two squares located near the west end of the pad where it has a kind of, it's not perfectly rectangular. There's this little rectangular section kind of jutting out. And what we wanted to do with building the screen porch is square those off. So that's why we would need a variance for both the front and side setbacks.
And squaring it up, that's on the southerly side, the
Correct.
southwest
So
side.
the idea
the
is
southwest corner.
Those two little squares of deck would be sites for footings for the expanded roof for the screen porch.
Okay.
So to clarify, the setbacks variance then, it's how, the side yard is how much again? You're short by, you said almost
9 inches.
9 inches. How short in the front?
I don't know exactly. It's I would probably have to ask the engineers for a dimension. It might be somewhere in the application.
It's no worse than the house.
That is true.
But I don't think that pad violates the front setback.
I think it
It
does
does
because of
violate
the
this-
new,
yeah.
because of
Well,
that new
yeah.
circle. I
It's
think
50
it
feet
does.
for the front setback, right?
It's 50
Right,
feet.
50 feet.
Yeah, I
Oh,
was
you're
gonna
right.
say,
I'm
it's
sorry,
50
Judge,
feet,
you're right,
yeah.
you're correct,
But that's a
right.
good point, though, the fact that the, the front of the house is the same, it's the same line we're talking about.
Yeah.
So
It
we really
is.
need the variance for the front setback then? He's already has the non-conforming, he's just squaring it off.
In terms of the patio, the slab
Yeah.
doesn't meet the definition of structure
Okay.
within our zoning bylaw to be able to afford itself of,
You're not extending the pad
Yeah.
further towards the street.
No.
but to use it as a non-conforming, to build up as a non-conforming structure, it
Yeah.
doesn't meet that requirement of the bylaw.
So it'll be a non-conforming structure requiring a variance.
So it needs a variance,
Okay. Okay.
but in point of fact, I mean, it's,
So if we end up closing tonight, I just wanna make sure, will I get all these dimensions?
yes,
Okay.
I believe
Yeah, I
we
think
already,
them in the
we already
upper-
have, yeah, we do,
Yeah.
yeah, we did get update from the surveyor in terms of the front. I don't know the top of my head. But-
Do you know if footings are required for for a patio like that, like a screened-in porch? Because you don't know what's underneath that pad at this point.
So
do
it
you?
wouldn't be what's underneath the pad, so I do know, like, those little 2 squares of deck, those were, it's basically just soil underneath there.
Okay.
And so the idea was to use those as spaces to put in sonotubes to serve as footings for the extended roof.
Okay.
I'd probably have to get my contractor to, I mean, like, I don't do construction, so somebody else who is qualified should probably explain those kinds of things, but his plan was to use those 2 little squares there, because they're not,
The only
Yeah.
reason why I ask is because if you get all approved by us, and then you go to the building department, and the building department says you need footings, we could be back here again, because the footings may end up being bigger than what you're requiring or what you're asking. And you could actually put the slab into conforming maybe, even after that. I don't know. I mean, that's what, I mean, I'm almost thinking that the structure you're putting on there needs some kind of a footing, not just a slab under it. Maybe I'm wrong, but,
well, so all we would really be doing is, we're extending the roof, so it's our dining room right now, which is that little structure with the sliding glass door.
okay,
So the idea is that that front roof would be removed and then extended out.
okay.
Okay, and then the front part of the roof
Yeah.
would be sitting on, we'd have 2 posts.
I see
like
what you're saying.
One supported, with a footing there, and one supported with a footing right over there. And so the idea is that we wouldn't be putting anything, like, we're not decking over the slab that's there or anything else like that. We'd probably just, put a floating floor on it or something. So it's not really going to be, we're not going to have anything, the slab won't be carrying any significant weight on its own. And we're just extending the roof line over the pad.
I got you.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
Well, there is on the other one.
This, just have a observation. The squaring off of that space
Mhm.
wouldn't be considered an extension, is, depending on the height. Because I guess some towns have like 7 feet is considered a structure, above 11. How high will it be?
Let's see, I don't know, but I think it'll be at about as high as, it'll be slightly lower than where the gutter line is on the existing front of the house. And so I don't know what the actual vertical measurement of that is offhand.
So basically you're saying it's not going to be enclosed? Is that what you're saying? Is it
It's gonna be a screen porch, right?
screen porch?
It's gonna be a screen porch, yeah.
Okay.
And that does show up on assessors, right? That is considered
That's
structure then?
In terms of, for assessment, you mean? Yeah, it's a screened-in porch.
Yeah, the screened-in porch and the deck, and that's on my assessment.
Yeah.
Did you have something else, Joe?
Yeah, well, that was the 2, so the 2 variances for the deck, I understand. One more time on, no, I was getting backed up. So I understand the variant, so is it 2 for the screened-in porch or 1? It's 1.
There's 2. It's the side and the front.
Side and the front.
That's for
yeah.
the screened-in porch.
Screened-in
Right,
porch.
And the deck
right.
is just the
Just-
setback.
Okay, got it. Okay, now I'm clear. I said, so on the setback's gonna be how much then for the deck then? I think it's gonna be none.
It's gonna be close to 0.
It's
It's, I
less
think
than
it's
a foot.
inches, yeah.
I think it's
okay.
9, it might be, I forget the measure in the plan, I think it's
Okay.
like 9 inches or something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
For the time being.
It's 49.4 feet, so, and if you need 50 feet, so it's,
Yeah.
Right, so it's, I mean, we're hoping at some point in the future, I believe, to address the issue in terms of the property line discrepancy
Right.
between the, you know, the mortgage survey and all those other things and the actual property line. It is quite far away from the street, though.
from the pavement,
That's correct.
right, from the
Yeah,
actual,
it is.
yeah.
So that would be, and so the town is, at least at this point, they're not generally about the garage being on the town layout. We need to work that through in terms of, you know, potentially one option would be to abandon a portion of West Birch to,
Right. But for the purposes of this variance, we have to.
you have to look at it as what it is.
What it is
yeah.
now, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
But in general, the deck is, it's close to the front lot line, but just because of the peculiarity of where it runs, it's about 40 feet away from the street.
Oh, yeah, and I was there, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when we go through the variance criteria,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when, to clearly understand the difference between it being topology or lot
Okay.
size, I guess we need to understand that a little bit better. Does the applicant help clarify that for us?
I mean,
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, what's your?
Well, I want to know, is the applicant going to help us clarify, though? Are we looking at it being a lot size issue, or is it going to be a topography issue?
I guess,
think
I guess the question is really, under the criteria to qualify for a variance, you know, is it lot size, shape, or topography? And if you want to give us your opinion on why you'd qualify for that.
I think at least on a couple of counts. I mean, the lot shape itself is odd and certainly not one that is that you're likely to encounter again. I think in dealing with other applications like this, it is a generally triangular shape with a lot for the lot, but obviously like rounded off. And the house is situated in what, in a lot of ways, is the most problematic corner of it for any kind of expansion or building projects. And this is, you know, we're in a position right now where even if we wanted to build, outward, I don't know that we could just because of setback issues. So we're not looking to really expand the footprint of the house in any ways, but it's where it is now, it really is kind of jammed in there in the corner. In terms of topography, as I've already mentioned, it's situated kind of in the middle of a relatively steep hill. The only flat ground that's really available to us is this, the side yard on the north side of the house where the septic tank is located. So we really can't do any kind of construction there. So I would say that topography is probably the more important of those two sets of criteria, but certainly the shape and dimensions of the lot make it, extremely difficult to, really do much anywhere.
Thank you. I just wanted to get your opinion on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the board? Anybody from the public here to speak on that application? Nothing else? Can we get a motion to close the hearing?
Make a motion to close the hearing on 8 Birch Drive.
Second.
Any discussion? We need a roll call vote, or
Tim Martin,
aye?
Joe Sebastiano,
Aye.
Josie Cordahi,
Aye.
and David Axberg.
Aye.
That's 4 unanimous.
So we'll try to deliberate tonight if we can. If not, we'll do it at our next meeting.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
your patience.
Yeah, thanks for hanging in there on this one.
Thank you.
Okay, the hour being 7:24. Next on the agenda for 7:15, we have 35 Pine Street. I'd like to open that hearing up. I see the applicant's counsel's here. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you in person.
Yeah, this is great.
Same here.
Just pull up the agenda.
I think if those things have stayed the same, Mr. Quiglieri is going to be watching the live stream, and then
David
He'll be-
Collin.
he'll be
You'll be calling, okay.
he'll be calling in terms of he's caring for an elderly
Okay.
family member who's
Very good.
so.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman, last time we met on Zoom, I think we had talked about going over the waivers for the next hearing. After we last met, I had submitted an updated set that had 4 changes, what had previously been seen and edited by Bill. And Dan had sent out some comments this afternoon. in response to a lot of that stuff, so it probably makes sense just to start marching through the waivers. I can do it, or Dan can do it, or however,
Okay.
it's easiest.
Dan, would you like to take us through it?
Sure. Yeah, and just for background, one new member at least, who I don't think has done a 40B with us. I'm not sure if Josephine has done it. Did you do a decision with us yet on 40B? I can't remember if you were here for the Abbeville one or not, but,
Yes,
She's here for Main Street.
oh, for Main Street, okay.
Yeah.
So just as a refresher, the waiver table is really the main function of chapter 40B for the zoning boards, is to decide which bylaws should apply to a project, which ones should be waived. And, generally speaking, the test is, is the waiver in the best interest of the town of Norfolk? In that regard, is it consistent with local needs? And that's essentially a weighing of the local housing need versus the local concern that's being driven by the waiver. There is a presumption in towns that don't have 10% of their housing as affordable that bylaws should be waived to make a project economically viable. Ultimately, the test is on the applicant to prove that the waivers are necessary to make the project work financially. And so that's basically the standard of review in a nutshell. The exercise of going through the waivers is generally pretty productive in that it generates a lot of discussions for conditions as well. So we always start with the waivers, and as we go through these, in past experience, it's usually taken at least one night, if not 2 or 3 nights. We will have the opportunity to be taking notes and to be thinking about not only just waivers, but also conditions that we want to put on the permit itself. And I can tell you, just from working in a lot of other towns on 40B projects, Norfolk's bylaw regime is quite extensive, very comprehensive. I'm sure a lot of developers would
I'd qualify it otherwise, but.
protest, but no, it is very extensive. So that's why we have a lot of waivers here. So it'll take some time to go through, but on the plus side, it's actually nice that a town has really thought through all the potential issues that projects present themselves, and so. That being said, we'll just launch right into it. We start with the general bylaws, and the first, okay. So the first waiver request is earth removal. This is something that the board has generally waived, unless a project that calls for a lot of movement of earth, cuts and fills. Abbeville was an example of that. It also is important when you're dealing with sites that are within a aquifer protection district. This project site, there's a clip of it that's in, the frontage site is is within the aquifer protection district in Norfolk, but the majority of the site is not. So on this one, I believe, Bill, you didn't have any concerns about the waiver of this bylaw, is that right?
That's correct, yeah. The quantities we don't think are an issue. Again, I would just say that we want to make sure that we understand, or the board understands quantities of earthwork required and how that generates truck traffic. But I think the quantities are small enough here that there shouldn't be an issue.
Do we have,
Have we identified those quantities, estimated quantities?
We did. I think you did send them over.
yeah.
I don't have them in front of me.
Yeah, and I don't remember them off the top of my head
but
either.
we did look at them, and they're fairly small in terms of the amount of cut and fill required for the site.
is it a net export?
I believe it's a net export, but I don't have that quantity off the top of my head.
Yeah, I believe he's
don't know if it was
correct
in
with
the
that.
letter.
One of the things we typically look at with this particular, when it comes to earth removal is project location,
Sure.
and this one's on,
This is nice, to get trucks have to leave, it's a nice truck route, right?
yeah, it's already on
Yeah.
115.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a scope of
Well,
it, so
yeah.
people knew what to expect. If we're gonna have, if we can anticipate generally one day of truck removal off-site, or be 2 weeks or 3 months, but
Yeah.
I know it's a good truck route out there, and it wouldn't impact the neighborhood.
All right, we can.
But we can go on,
We'll get
that's
there.
fine.
Why don't we just move on? So, any other concerns with the,
No,
So it looks like, the applicant responded, to one of our review letters, excuse me, with 3,900 cubic yards of material to be removed from the site.
Pretty paltry compared to Abbeville, where I think we were dealing with around 900,000 cubic yards.
Right.
So,
Okay, thank you.
all right, next one is the post-construction stormwater management. So we have a stormwater bylaw in town, and so what the applicant is asking for is a waiver from the bylaws requirements, and agreeing to comply with the state stormwater standards. That's pretty typical with our 40B projects. Again, unless there's some unique circumstance where the town's bylaw is important. This is a private project, the road is gonna remain private, the town's never gonna have responsibility for the stormwater structures. Correct? Okay.
And we do, I know it doesn't say it in here, but we do know now is this would need a SWIP, because it's on site, everything's contained on site.
Yep.
Just,
It will not need one?
it will not need one.
Okay, and that was my question,
Yeah,
Yeah,
we actually,
Jamie checked into it this afternoon, he agrees with that.
so we actually,
yes.
before that, them checking, and we already kind of vetted this out.
okay, so I'm gonna take out that language then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan, we vetted it out with 25 Rockwood Road. It came up, and we went back and forth with Outback and Bill and so forth. And the end of the day, the conclusion was it didn't need a SWIP.
And all the stormwater is staying tight, right? It's not
Right.
going
That's
to the
correct.
municipal system.
And that's the thing. And that's a, that is one of the more stringent requirements the town of Norfolk has compared to other municipalities.
Okay. Stabilization bylaw, this essentially, it's
I got-
actually,
Can we go back on that one, with Dan, at the bottom, it said in the decision, further, this comprehensive permit decision requires ZBA review and approval of the final stormwater management plans and calculations prior to construction. I think Jamie has submitted the final plans and final stormwater stuff, and nothing should change moving forward, right?
We have, I think, when we're done with this tonight, if the board has agreement, I think we may have 3 minor things to change. One being a detail, one being sightline triangles. But I think the drainage wise, I think we're pretty solid.
Yeah, I would only say that typical of the process, once the board chooses to approve or not approve the project, if it does approve the project, is a final set of plans
The Mylars,
that
yep.
are submitted,
Yep.
that address all the comments, address the board's conditions of approval.
Okay.
right, we did that with 194 Main Street. And we
Right.
do that for all of our projects, that there's a set of plans that we'll approve tonight or at the next meeting, and then you'll come back with a final set. Maybe there's no changes, but it'll still be subject to administrative review by the consulting engineer.
All right, understood. Thank you.
All right, so property stabilization bylaw, this is actually a fairly unique provision to Norfolk. You can't clear your property just without permission. We routinely grant that waiver for 40B projects, subject to conditions in our permit. Our permit actually says you can't just go out and clear, there needs to be a process. We have boilerplate conditions that address stabilization issues, so. The next one I have is, now we're in the zoning bylaws, the use regulations, and this section is not a section that I had seen before with our 40B decisions. Do you wanna?
Yes, a good call.
It's in there, we did talk about it a little bit for 194 Main Street, I forget exactly who was on that board, but basically what it says, you can't clear the property lines, the setback of the property lines, and unless you get some relief from the building commissioner. That doesn't make sense to us, because we're gonna come in, we're gonna clear the lot, then we're gonna construct and, revegetate and do what we have to do. So we're just looking for some relief from that. Obviously, there's stabilization stuff we'll have to do that Dan's just mentioned, and that's fine with us.
So the nuance to this bylaw is that as the developer building the home for whoever it would be, they need to comply with this provision, essentially limit the clearing area when they construct the home. However, it's not, once there's a change and the homeowner takes possession of it, they can clear the rest of the lot if they wish to.
Right.
Unless it's jurisdictional of the Conservation Commission. So it's really kind of a interim step to minimize clearing.
So I propose that we waive this. Any concerns?
None.
Okay. All right, so the next one is D1A2. Basically another tree clearing provision, Rich.
Yeah, that's the body of it.
I think we've seen this before. Looks like you're not supposed to clear within 50 feet of a right-of-way without permission, pre-construction permit. So again, all that would be encompassed within the process that's regulated by the comprehensive permit itself. So
Okay.
we'll waive that one. The next one is D1B. That's just a boilerplate or default catch-all provision that any use not specifically allowed is deemed prohibited. The situation here is that we're in a commercial zone, the C1 zone, where residential is not expressly permitted. So we would have to waive that for this project to go forward. The next one is D1 E4, landscaping requirements. There's a lot of conditions, there's a lot of waiver requests in here that deal with landscaping. So we have a preliminary landscaping plan sheet, I believe, as part of the site plan sets. And I believe at the last meeting, the board did not request any further landscaping review of the project. So one question I had for you folks tonight is, do you want to see a refined landscaping plan with the final set of plans that are provided after the permit's been issued, to have Bill's team look at? Or do we want to just pass on landscaping?
What level of detail would we see that we haven't already seen?
It's a good question. Maybe.
I don't think you'd see a whole heck of a lot of change. Maybe by some of the units, we'd provide some templates, if that, but you wouldn't see much of a change. It's basically the street trees and what we've got down by the detention basins.
Yeah.
And,
We,
yeah.
on our landscaping plan, we've provided a lot of landscaping throughout the whole site, especially in the front to try to beautify the street view. But also in front of the units, we have a mix of deciduous trees going up along the sides of the driveways, some evergreens in the corners, fencing. Yeah, Al wants to make sure that these are sellable units, so he wants them to look nice. I mean, we feel very comfortable with the landscaping. It's probably a little bit more than we've done on similar projects in size.
Yeah, we've seen quite a few plans, and just to go back on the clear cut, it sounds to some of the neighbors or whoever, you're gonna clear cut, but when you look at the proposal, in essence, you have to, because by the time you build the units, the road, the driveways, and that, there's really not much land left anyway, and then you're gonna replant it with which we've already seen, the proposed planting sites and the caliber of the trees, so forth. So I'm not sure there's gonna be a lot more detail,
No,
unless
I
the
mean-
board thinks otherwise.
But did, I don't know if Rich's team had looked at any, was there any comment on landscaping to date from your team?
We did not look at landscaping.
Right, okay,
at the-
because
at the
it
board's
wasn't
request.
in your scope. of work.
The only thing I would say is if there's gonna be a sign proposed, I don't know if you have a detail of a sign yet,
We don't.
but that's something you may wanna see on the
Okay.
final plans.
Good point. No, thank you.
Yeah, if you're gonna have like a development sign to it.
Right.
Does he have I'm assuming he must have a standard kind of landscape package that will be included with, when he sells the home units?
For each unit, yeah. He plans on dressing them up in the front with, with mulch and flowers.
It wouldn't be terrible just to have that, whatever that is, just in the record in case somebody calls the office. At least I know that, okay, here's the package, landscape package that you would get as part of development.
Any problem with that?
I don't think that's a big ask, no, that's fine.
I have a question for Dan. What, just zoning board, how much are we required to bend over backwards for a 40B project? In reality, I mean, these zoning laws were put into effect to protect the community from developments that are like this? How far do we have to? I mean, I know they were even rejected with a 6 plan because of probably a lot of waivers that were gonna be required for that. So, that's my question. I don't know, I'm new, so.
Sure. I could speak for 2 hours on that question.
I hear
but-
you. I hear you. A 5,000-foot
Yeah, sure.
overview would be great.
40B process.
Yeah, okay, so like, my 5 or 10 minute, boiler, I mean, just nutshell, what is 40B about? It basically, it's a carrot and stick approach. It was adopted 50 years ago. It was meant to get towns to produce affordable housing on their own. And the penalty is, if you don't meet one of the thresholds being either 10%, so 10% of your housing being being affordable housing or a land area, that the presumption is that what the developer proposes on a plan gets approved. And you can rebut that presumption by showing dire environmental impacts, public health, safety, planning impacts, but that's almost impossible to win on if you're a town on that side of the ledger. In most cases, when a town is below the threshold, they don't have a choice but to pass a project, with conditions, but approve it. And then the debate comes down to which conditions to put on and which waivers to grant. So that's, I think, the nut of your question is, how far do we have to go with these waivers? And ultimately, the developer does have a burden to show that they need these waivers to make the project work financially. So there are some provisions in here that you might scratch your head and say, you know what, this isn't gonna cost the developer anything. Why do we have to waive it? Mike will have an opportunity to respond. But generally speaking, most of these waivers are needed to make the project work financially. And for those that aren't, Bill's raised issues, I've raised some concerns and questions, and that's the point of tonight, is to go through all of these to understand, does the developer really need these waivers to make this project work?
And David, when this application came in, originally there was, community, members of the community talking pro and con and a lot of questions about it. And not to put words in anybody's mouth, but generally there was some complimentary notes about this, in that it was a nice way to transition from a residential to commercial, where you have residential out back and commercial, and to do that with this type of housing, it was a nice way to transition that. And we looked at the traffic and so forth, as Dan talked about safety issues and things like that. So, fair question. Like he said, he can go on for a few hours, but I think some of the people who would be mostly affected by this address concerns, and they're welcome to come forward again and bring them up.
And one of the things that we do during this exercise is look at the precedent that we've set. And precedent's maybe the wrong word because it's not binding, but we have approved 5 or 6 40B projects, I think, in Norfolk over the last 10 years, maybe less. And so we have waiver tables from all these projects, and we can look back, and I have done that, and to say, what did we do this time or last time? So we want to be consistent with what we do, and that works to the developer's benefit, but sometimes, as you'll see, to the developer's detriment, where they've asked for things that we've never granted before, and maybe this is not the first project to do so. So the guiding principles are, what have we done last time, but also not just waive everything, right? It's got to be a balance. As Tim said, there's a need for affordable housing. This project is deemed to be well planned. It's a good site for it. So balancing that against the local concerns that are raised by potentially waiving some of these requirements.
As far as the landscaping, I do, from my recollection is that Al did have a lot of unique proposals, and he showed us a lot of, landscaping plans, and I did voice, my only concern was regarding the, operational maintenance and how the HOA is going to work, and I never really heard any of the details. I know with, maintenance and having housing with this type of density, you're gonna need an HOA. I mean, he was saying that, people they're gonna cut the grass and on the street in front of the house. They're gonna take care of the sidewalk in front of the house, which is not always the case. And we just don't wanna be a town, facing, adopting, like after 10 years of it being on its own, we're gonna go back and, because of all the complaints, go back and adopt this road because it hasn't been maintained properly. So that, I think that HOA, having owned properties in HOA where the wording has been ambiguous, I think it needs to be really thought through, okay? Especially with the uniqueness of the plan and the landscaping, about who's responsible, what, how the paving is going to happen, how the snow plowing is going to happen and plowing, because the expectation of a resident, especially if it's, 2 or 3 units occupying a structure and that they're going to, jointly take care of the sidewalk area in front of the house isn't a realistic expectation. So that's my own concern.
Great points. All right, so moving on to, the next one is use regulations, subsection D. Again, this goes back to, what's allowed in the district and what's not. Again, we're a C1 district, residential is not allowed. So this language, that I proposed, actually is similar to what we did in Abbeville. Basically saying, look, you're in a C1 district, what we're gonna allow here is a total of 8 units, containing, single-family homes. These are 4-bedroom houses, right?
3.
3 bedroom.
3. All the units will be residential, there'll be customary accessory uses, there'll be private on-site sewage disposal, subject to Title 5. And I do have HOA language further down in the waivers, and we'll actually have conditions that do exactly what you suggested, Josie, is to lay out specific requirements for the HOA for maintaining the common areas. So that's,
I think there's a typo in there, Dan.
Sure.
You make a reference to a condominium lot. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down in that section.
You're referring to the overall lot?
yeah, it's a condominium, it's still a condominium, right? Because you're
No.
gonna, it's not going to be?
No. What is it gonna be?
Yeah, how's
A PUD?
Homeowners
Homeowners association.
Association, HOA.
Fee simple. Each person's gonna own their own lot. That's why we're doing the individual septics.
I think he's asking about the individual parcel though, with the road and the drainage basins.
Well, that'll be held, as part of a trust. A trust will own the common areas.
Okay. So this will be different from, I believe, what we've been done than what we've done with Enclave and Tom DePlacido's projects. I'm pretty sure those have all been
I think those are condos, right?
common, exclusive use areas for the homes, but then the whole tract is a condominium. Okay, that works. The next section is
So the
the,
trust is only gonna own the road.
There'll be some
And
common
then-
areas too, I think, for
Yeah,
so
like
drainage
the
areas.
stormwater.
So the
retention.
thumbnail explanation is that the association's gonna plow the road, repair and replace the road when it comes time for it, and maintain and repair the stormwater management systems. And we typically
maybe
build in a
the
monthly
lighting,
reserve
right?
to, what's that?
Maybe lighting depends on.
Maybe lighting, yeah, right, whatever.
but you're proposing the stormwater structures on the lots, right? They're not gonna be on
Mhm.
separate lots?
Correct.
So the only land that the HOA will own is the road?
Is the roadway, right.
Okay.
Well, it's the roadway with the drainage.
Isn't, excuse me, I thought
Sidewalk, isn't it?
1 or 2 of the infiltration basins were on separate lots, or am I?
I think it's all
I think they're
on,
on the homeowner lots.
I think they're all in a homeowner lot, yeah.
Which,
I don't think
it
they
doesn't
are.
have to
I
be
don't
done
think
that
so
way.
either.
I don't think they are.
I thought there was like lot 8 or something was.
Lot 8 is not, the drainage area appears to be outside the,
Yeah,
Lot
it's
8.
outside.
and the same with Lot 1 does not have that infiltration.
Oh, is
value.
that a lot line?
Oop.
Is this a lot line?
That's what I,
That's
that's
what it
what
looks
I
like.
assumed it was.
that is a lot line.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I,
So lot
Yes.
1 does have a basin on it, lot 8 does not.
oh, so you need to label these 2 lots then, these don't have labels on
Well,
them.
that's all part of the the roadway. So that's all part of parcel A.
Oh, well, we can call it parcel A or parcel B,
Yeah,
yeah.
clarity.
And those two parcels will be maintained by the
The
homeowners
the
association.
homeowners association will own parcel A, call it parcel A and parcel B on the road.
Yeah, see, what we were doing it like, can you go back one sheet? One more before that? Yeah, so right there, actually even one more before that, please, the logging sheet. Here we go. So parcel A is the area down at the base plus the roadway.
And on lot one, the drainage area will have there'll be an easement for the homeowners association to maintain the drainage area.
That's correct. I can change it if that's the preference.
Yeah, I don't know,
My opinion would be, it would be cleaner if the road was sort of a separate parcel and the two, then you had two parcels
Yeah.
with the infiltration systems on them.
Yep,
You
that's
wanna
fine.
do that? That's not a problem on ours.
There's more maintenance to that than meets the eye on a yearly basis. Before, it almost looked like you were gonna just be doing a reserve kind of thing from the homeowners for paving or for whatever. But there's more to it. There's snow plowing, there's landscaping on that front entrance and everything that's gonna have to be figured into their fee simple.
Right, it's similar to a condominium, right?
It is.
Yep.
So if those drainage areas are not properly maintained, and they're not part of a condominium, but of an association, and the town, if it becomes a health issue, how would the town enforce that?
So typically, what I've done in the past, when these questions arise, in my association docs, I give the town the right and easement to enter into the property and to take care of those safety issues comes to that. Not the liability, but if enough people complain because it's not being done, then you can come in and here's your right, it's in this document.
And then the cost of that would be borne by the association, which is the homeowners.
They're responsible, yes.
So you could put a lien against each house.
Yeah, I think we've built in language into our prior decisions, because we've always had this problem
Yep.
where for private developments, we should always have the town being able to step in. There'll be an easement given to the
Right,
town, so
yep.
we can go in there and make repairs or maintenance.
Next question is it clear who manages the HOA?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all the unit, it's just like a condominium, so every lot is gonna have one share of the HOA, and it'll be treated just like a condominium. In fact, I think it's still, isn't it still governed by 180?
No.
It's not?
It's not
No.
governed by 183A.
No. Typically, it's a contractual right that if someone's not paying, you go and you gotta take them to court and all that good stuff to enforce their obligations.
It's much harder.
Can you make it? I mean,
It's a lot
in the
harder. No
contract, can you
trustees.
make
Oh,
it
no, it's a much harder
governed by
scenario.
183A? Can you say
Well, that's what I try to do, that's my kind of catch-all provision. It's governed by you gotta follow the process at least for the 183A.
I'm just saying, like, who makes the call that the road needs to be repaired?
Exactly, yeah.
Who makes the call?
Yeah, who makes that call?
The HOA.
Yeah, but, well, again, it comes down to whether they're proactive enough to do that.
Well, realistically, it comes down to whether they have enough money to do it,
Right.
and if they're gonna willingly do that. And if you
Well,
have,
It's their road, but ultimately it's a public safety issue. So
Correct.
if the fire department or the police say this road is in such disrepair, you need to fix it or else we take you to court. So we'll have something in our decision, like we do for past projects, that if it falls into disrepair, the town can force repairs of the road and then charge the HOA, again, as through a lien process, charge the HOA for the cost.
And the sidewalk would be also part of that?
It's easier to get out of the trust than it is to actually have a town enforce the trust. So in reality, house number 8 says, I don't wanna be a part of the trust anymore, and they fight and say, I'm not part of the trust anymore.
No, by deed, they're accepting a deed to the property, they're automatically part of the homeowners association.
I know. This is what I do for a living, so, I mean, it's easier for them to get out of it.
But the comprehensive permit will mandate it has to be that way.
Right,
So it would be a zoning violation if
right.
I hear you.
a lot owner was.
The enforcement side of life is the difficulty.
Right.
It always is, and that's the trouble with private roads. I mean, private roads are great on one hand, but, because the town doesn't have to maintain them, but things do happen, and things fall into disrepair. I see it everywhere, you know, stormwater basins don't get maintained, someone has to step in, because if a stormwater basin, these are close to the street. So if these fail, you might see flooding in Pine Street. So the town will have an incentive to go in there and fix it, which is not ideal, but on the flip side, the town's not paying to maintain the road on an annual basis.
And the association would maintain the sidewalk area also?
Yeah, I think we talked about that last time, as part of the snow removal and stuff like that. We had talked about it, the contractor would come in and sweep the sidewalk or whatever the piece of equipment, you might know, whatever the piece of equipment would be to clear the sidewalk, yeah, that'd be on them.
You know, you'd probably be interested in knowing that I'm on the other side of a situation like this, where we don't have any trustees as far as the HOA, and the last, like, where the rental property is the last house, and they are trying to force me to go do the road with them, but they haven't allowed me to go get my own proposals or get other prices, and they haven't made me part of the approval process. It's like, you know, 5 people getting up on 2 people, so it is complicated without trustees, so. I've been to court twice, and twice I haven't been able to do anything, so.
And we will talk about sidewalks as we get further down. I think that's an unresolved
So
issue.
so is it normal to have an HOA without trustees? that-
Is it normal?
Is it not normal, is that one of the usual situations, HOA without trustees?
No.
No, it's exactly like a condominium, it's a condominium trust, and the unit owners would get on a board. I mean, if you're living there, you have a vested interest in overseeing things.
I'm sure the guy at the end wants the roadway to look good.
Right, exactly. I mean, you're gonna sell your house to someone later in the future, I would assume. You don't want it to fall in disrepair, you wanna look after it. And generally, the proactive people are the ones who look after it anyway. So, you know, for something like this, we'd have 3 trustees, I guess. If it were a condominium of this size, you'd still probably have 3. So it's a trust either way.
And if you're concerned about the HOA, we can have a provision that I'll look at the documents from a legal perspective to make sure they're protecting our interests.
Yeah, only because alone we have no experience setting up HOAs or anything. But, yeah, that would make sense. And is this the only one that we've done with a private road, out of all the ones we've accepted? I can't
No, I
remember.
mean, enclave,
All the condos have private roads.
Right, but they have condos, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I
No,
mean,
some of
a
the-
meeting
some
house
of the
is
40Bs though
private.
are
Yeah.
roads that we would accept at some point, right? Aren't there some 40Bs that the roads would become
I don't know of
public?
any, but Rich, you may know of some, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
They
Abbeville.
can be, yeah.
Yeah, we'll wait crossing now, but part of it will be accept, the main road where the singles family home
Okay.
will be accepted as a town way. And then the townhouses will be as part of the condo association, and similar on Lakeland Hills.
Meeting house was the same way, right up back here. The main road was
Ma-
accepted,
Accepted as
Or
a
is-
public way.
hopefully
Right.
still gonna be accepted.
Right,
I don't know
Well,
if
that's why
you've
I was asking how
actually,
many
at
that
town
we-
meeting,
It
we
is
didn't
done
get.
now.
Okay,
It
good.
is done now, so.
Right, that's why I was asking, how many
Yeah.
have we approved of being private? That's what I'm getting at. Like, is Boyd
Yeah,
Crossing?
you have, yeah.
Boyd Crossing private?
Boyd's is private, but it's all condoed, the whole entire,
Right, okay.
it's not fee simple. This is, and, well, actually, so Lakeland Farms is the same way. It's all it's all one parcel.
Well, I like what Dan said about reviewing the HOA documents. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so.
So, the next one is, the Aquifer, and Water Supply District. As I mentioned, there's a small piece in the front of the site that's within the district. And, I'm not sure you even need a waiver from this, but you think you do?
Yeah, generally, I'd rather err on the side of caution and ask for a waiver.
Okay. So usually, again, the concerns with, aquifer protection is earth removal, stormwater management, septic systems, anything that can potentially impact the water quality. We've got good conditions in here and bylaws that deal with all of those issues, so we generally will waive this provision. We've waived it in the past. So Mike, I thought that the next 4,
You're right, yeah, yeah.
so that when we get to the intensity of use regulations, that's actually covered by section J of the zoning bylaws, so that's, when we get there, we'll talk about those. So now we're at E2B, It's a yard requirement, so we're gonna waive that. Basically, what we're doing with these dimensional requirements is saying the waivers that you need to accomplish what's shown on the plan, you're gonna get those waivers. At this point, the board is comfortable, I think, with the design of the project and buildings are, and where the roads are. So there's a whole list of
Sure.
requirements that need waived to facilitate that.
Understood.
So,
How about in terms of accessory structures, sheds, those kind of things? Are they gonna, so will people be allowed to, have those?
I don't see any reason to restrict it.
if they comply with the zoning bylaw.
Right.
So
If
if
they-
someone's putting a shed that doesn't
Right.
comply with the zoning bylaw,
Right.
we have actually language at the bottom of this section that, or actually it's in the comprehensive permit conditions, boilerplate language, that if anybody on a lot wants to make a change, it's treated like a pre-existing non-conforming structure. So you come in for a special permit to get that approved.
Okay.
That way it's not a modification of the whole decision. If one person wants to put a shed that's,
Okay.
What's that shit,
Not
120 square feet?
For permit, but,
Oh, that's a permit one?
well, 200, but it's still accessory
So
structure.
none of them would qualify for an addition.
not by right, but
Right.
they could apply to you for either
Just like the
variance
guy
or-
just did at 8 Birch.
So what I've done on past projects is, to avoid repeated trips to you folks, your time's valuable. We had given the building inspector the ability to allow an addition up to, I think it was 200 square feet. And again, I haven't looked at these, so I don't even know if it's possible. Just within the setbacks we have shown on the plans. And typically that was like maybe an addition above a garage or something like that, because it was a single-story garage. If that's something you folks might want to consider, it keeps people from reappearing before you every couple of years saying, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. If you give the building inspector the ability to do so in the comprehensive permit, that's where the inquiry stops with him or her.
So you're suggesting not an expansion of the footprint, but the possibility of going up over the garage or something? You're
Either
just making a
way.
suggestion, right?
And limit the size, so if it got bigger than 200, 10 by 20, or 10 by 15, or whatever you folks deemed appropriate, it's just a thought.
So we had just tackled this a little bit.
Yeah, on Cliff?
Yeah. So do you have
But that-
patios or decks?
That was still under, that's still under the developer's care, was it not, that one on the enclave?
Well, he's building it for the home,
Yeah, but-
prospective home.
But it was a
But
modification.
he's talking about after the fact.
Right, after-
Right.
right.
I wouldn't go down the after the fact thing. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, and the building inspector still has, certain changes to non-conforming structures don't need a special permit, right? I mean, so the building inspector is always the first stop, and if it's a benign change that's not intensifying the nonconformities, the building inspector has the authority to grant that.
Correct.
So it's only if it's something that's larger in scope and scale that it comes to the zoning board, even outside of the 40B context. And I would suggest you just keep it that way rather than,
Again, it's just throwing it
I
out there.
would do it that way.
Well, the example I'm just talking about, it was patios that turned into screened-in porches, so that was
Right,
a concern, or at least raised the issue.
right.
yeah, the beauty of doing it, treating these as non-conforming structures is that there's hundreds and hundreds of cases that have dealt with every single instance. And so there's already a body of precedent that we can just turn to if there's a question, like if,
All right, so then going forward, it would be, if they want to do those things, it'd be a special permit?
well, the building inspector first.
Yeah.
He would decide
Pretty
that.
limited over our bylaw right now.
Yeah.
You can't, I mean, under the present bylaw, there's really not much, there's no wiggle room. But anyway,
Okay. I just have to reopen my spreadsheet
raises
here.
a point for the revisiting our bylaw,
Right,
actually.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we have talked about that too. 'Cause it's,
All right, so now we're on to section F1, I believe. Yeah, this is just a boilerplate section that buildings and structures have to be built in compliance with the zoning bylaw. Obviously, they won't be necessarily here, so we're waiving this to allow what's shown in the plans. Now we're into, I think, Mike, I think you missed this one, so I stuck it in here. It's section F7E. So I think you want that waiver
Yeah, yes.
to allow parking in
Right.
front of the units. Because you're in a commercial zone, you typically don't allow parking in front of buildings, so here you obviously want to since they're houses. F11,
Did you say F7?
7E.
that was F7E.
I don't know why it's on here, why it's not on here.
So
He
F
had it,
section F1, that's the waive its entirety, allow all buildings and structures as shown in the project plans and the terms and conditions. That, but in the other one, it says all structures are hereafter constructed need to meet with the provisions. So we're only waiving it for the developer,
That's
correct?
correct.
By this wordage?
Right, that's the request, is,
Okay.
I see your
It's-
point, I was
yeah.
looking at it myself. So the description is anything requested or just further constructed, but the applicant's requesting, waive all that, allow the buildings as shown in the plans.
Yeah.
So, kind of to your bigger point, I think we were going, if they come
Correct.
in after that, they still
If
have to
they
go
come
through
in
the
after, they
building
still have to go through the.
Right.
Okay.
And remember, every single waiver decision says subject to the conditions in the decision, so in the decision itself, there's conditions that deal with exactly this kind of circumstance. All right, so going down to F11, this is waiving requirements for site plan approval. The site plan approval process is subsumed within the 40B permitting process, so this is something that we waive, we have to waive it. Same thing with design review. Design review process is incorporated as the part of the comprehensive permit.
That should be F12, Dan, that last one.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We had talked about F11, I think, about the parking. And limiting how many could park on the street or something at one point. Because when you say you allow them to park in front of the building, it sounds like it could be on the street. But we're wanted everybody in their driveways or something.
Because it's a commercial district.
I understand what it's for, but maybe we need to say something in there so that it's a no on-streeting or something.
Yeah, I can say waive to allow parking in driveways.
That might also force some guest parking, which we asked for possibly.
And then there'll be a condition in the decision that prohibits on-street parking.
Yeah, you have a three-bedroom home and all of a sudden you have 3 college students that live in, and they all ours. You only have 2 spaces in the driveway. Where are all the cars going?
And we raised this issue during the hearing, that
Correct.
there was no visitor parking. I don't believe there is now, correct?
I don't think they added any, no.
So that remains an issue, and it's, until your hearing is closed, that's an issue. So you can bring it up again if you want.
Okay.
But we actually get to parking, I believe, further down. All right, so F11, F12, now we're at section G. This is just a standard condition, a standard provision that says that all certificates of occupancy must be issued for structures that comply with the zoning bylaw. These structures will not comply with the zoning bylaw in terms of setbacks and dimensions, so this is routinely waived for 40B projects.
Says, you denied it though. Section G? Oh, the second section.
G3.
G5.
G3.
Yeah, G3 is fine.
Okay, so then G5, enforcement of performance standards. This is something that we generally don't waive.
So there was when this came up during 194 Main Street, there was a question as to what section, there was an issue in the bylaws to what section the standards were referring to. And we had asked for a waiver because that was listed in section G. And we agreed on denied building inspector may enforce performance standards set forth in section F10, which it thought was the appropriate section he was looking at, or she was looking at.
Okay, so you're okay with this?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Section J deals specifically with the C1 district. And so this one is street trees, requirements of street trees. So the applicant is asking for a waiver from many of these provisions, basically to allow what's shown on the last set of site plans. And the applicant is proposing tree planting, but they're not street trees, and because they're not gonna be within the right-of-way of the road, they're gonna be on individual lots.
Correct.
So again, that's, you know, when we talk about maintenance of common areas, keep in mind, you know, if you care about the street trees, if you care about light posts and sidewalks, if they're not part of the HOA, then the perpetual maintenance of these features is not gonna be as easy, because you're relying on individual owners to maintain them and pay for them and so forth. So that's the pros and cons. And I think, you know, for other projects that we've dealt with, including the Lakeland Hills, the 144 Seekonk, the Abbeyvilles, those for the most part have required that the infrastructure be within the HOA properties or the public right-of-way, for that reason. So, just,
So do you anticipate that individual lot owner will have to get HOA approval to plant or remove a tree?
No, not at all. If there's a street tree that we have shown on the plans, we've added it to enhance the visibility of the street. We can restrict a homeowner from removing that tree because it's the association's tree, for lack of a better description. But they can do whatever else they want on their own remaining lands. I mean, I would think that you folks would want the street trees to remain as well, so.
Right.
Yeah.
but there's no guarantee that it's gonna survive. And so that,
I understand.
that's the, is that if it's not part of the HOA property, then
The actual housing, plot land is going right to the pavement, is
Right.
it not?
I believe so.
So you really have no tree, the tree's gonna be the homeowners.
Yep.
The association really has no say over the tree, whether it stays or goes. The homeowner does.
Well, I mean, theoretically, anyone could cut down a tree on their property, but the association would have the right to go replant it and maintain and repair it, replace it.
Not on their property, I don't think.
Yeah, but Bill just brought up a good point. On our registry plan, we're showing a tree easement.
Okay.
So there's access to maintain those trees.
Okay.
Okay.
And I believe that was something the board had asked
Right.
for.
All right, so the HOA will have the authority to maintain the area, the easement area.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, if
Maintain
you-
and replant if
Yep.
something's,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, I
So
think
you're okay with a
that's-
condition that requires that the landscaping be maintained?
I think it makes sense to have a condition like that in there.
Okay.
Yeah, you did.
Which sheet is that?
That'd be on sheet 3 of the
On sheet
plan
3?
set. It'd be the lotting sheet.
Okay.
Um,
And Dan, Dean, you mentioned it, Dan? When it comes to lighting, I know there's lighting on each individual's property, right? They maintain their own lamp, you said? But were there any specific lamps that would be part of the HOA, like the turnaround, or, I think it was, I remember we talked about
Or
this.
the entrance?
I
down by
think,
the-
I
One
think
at the
down,
entrance,
yeah,
yeah.
down by the street, there's a light pole there that Al was willing
It's almost
to
all the way
pay
up the
to
top.
have
Third sheet
installed, and
down.
the town would take ownership of that.
Right.
And then we were
right
proposing
there.
driveway lanterns for each person's driveway.
Right, that would be the only lighting in there?
Yep.
Right, and that wouldn't be part of the HOA?
Well, that was part of the discussion, whether
Right.
it would be, is it more for the convenience of each homeowner, or is it more for lighting of the street, and so, what's the function of it, right? So,
Right, I just can't remember what we concluded on that.
so,
I mean.
yeah, I don't know what you concluded, but,
The way I've done it in the past is for streetlights, it's mainly for the property owners, but we put it on a dusk to dawn, we hardwire it, and we can make that a condition of your decision. That way, the lights are on from dusk to dawn. But I guess at the end of the day, there's really, someone could undo the wiring and put a switch in and shut it off. But that's how we've done it.
So then I looked to the recommendation of either, Rich or Dan.
So will these light posts be within that easement area on the road, or?
Yeah, I believe the answer is yes. Stephanie, if you wanna scroll down, next sheet, I'm sorry, and, go one more. Yeah. You're gonna have to bring us to the landscaping plan, which might be, here we go. Yep, yep, yeah, it appears that they are. Cause we have them near the ends of the driveways, right there, exactly.
And Jamie, roughly, where's the lamp post that the town's gonna, that you propose the town maintain?
Should be on Main Street.
It goes down here.
it's right on the property.
I think we're just adding a lamp to an existing pole.
Right.
Right, so there's
On
utility
town
pole,
property now, is that?
yeah, the utility pole is on the corner
Okay.
there
It's
of the
on
property.
town land now?
Yeah,
It's good for the
Okay.
intersection.
yep.
Okay.
Is this dashed line, is this the easement area? Or no, that's
There's a different plan that shows it. What sheet's it on, Jamie?
It's on
What
the
does this line
third sheet.
represent, Jamie?
That is also the easement area.
Notice that the house
It is?
next
Yep.
door to this
Alright,
just
so it
went
looks
up
like you have to extend it over here, it's missing, right?
I just don't think it's showing up in that sheet.
He may
Jamie,
expand
is
his
the
project.
dashed line the sidewalk?
It would've been,
The dashed line on
probably-
the right
Yeah.
side
I think,
sidewalk?
I think that was the intent, if you really wanna have it for the,
Okay, but it
kind
wasn't
of,
clear yet to me, so.
yeah.
it's the guy who has the buses and everything.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense, cause otherwise you
Well,
turn
you know,
yours
like
on, I don't
commercial,
turn mine
he has a
on.
bus. He drives a bus, I think, and stuff.
That lighting.
Yes.
It's just before the railroad trestle.
I don't think it's any worse than
Oh, no, I think it would've made it easier for him. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So the conclusion is to be part of the HOA, right?
Well, I mean, if you really want to give the homeowners association the ability to go in and change light bulbs, and you wanna make that a condition of your approval, I'm all for it. But as far as wiring up, they really need to be run to each house for the sake of installation. And you can put a condition in that it's governed
Not
by a
set-
dusk to dawn
no.
light or whatever.
Oh, you didn't like my idea, huh?
No.
Separate meter?
Yeah.
Did we do that for, I feel like we've done that in the past for some projects, but I can't remember offhand.
The condo projects, they normally all have a separate meter for the common lighting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know we have, actually, all the streetlights now we're having, so they're separate meter, even the town as well, but, I can't recall, but it was the idea, if the intent is really to have it more as a, for a streetlight, not just a
Right.
function of the home,
Makes sense to
Can you
do
hear
it
me?
that way. I mean,
that way they're on, they're paid for, I mean,
The uniform, they're on.
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think it's easier and more productive if they're connected to the houses, just.
But the problem is that then,
You turn
again,
it on and
an
off,
individual unit owner can turn it off.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You hardwire it in with a dusk to dawn.
Yeah, but if he comes home intoxicated, runs over his lamppost,
Understood.
when's it gonna get replaced? Do you
Well,
understand what I'm saying? I
Well,
mean,
you could make that a
Mr.
responsible.
Jones is always gonna, he's
under-
gonna have a drinking problem forever, so.
But under that scenario, though,
I'm sorry.
Hope not.
the HOA would still have the ability to do that, to replace it though, because it'll be in the easement area.
Okay,
The only difference between what Mike is suggesting and what we're
Okay.
suggesting is the meter.
the power's coming
Yeah,
off
right,
of the
yeah.
homeowner, all right.
But we can have a condition that requires the power to be on. We can say, these
Yeah,
street
from
lamps
dusk
will
to
be
dawn.
on.
Right.
Okay.
Just becomes an enforcement issue.
We do wanna make it clear at the end of the day that they're self-policing themselves, right?
Well, yeah, and that's what Al just called to say, you know, is that, you know, they're individual lots and it's part of an HOA and they are gonna be looking at each other saying, hey, you gotta get your light fixed.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't wanna get in between the squabble of, you know, I wanna make it
Well-
clear so when they buy in, they know they gotta help self-police themselves as a.
Yeah, I think you'll be able to point back to the comprehensive permit and say, your development is governed by this document, in addition to the homeowners association. So-
Right. Make sure, just gotta double proofread that, because I've been a referee in some already.
I'll
so
wait till-
just-
Yeah,
Just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Leave your light on.
yeah.
yeah, right, leave your light on.
All right, I cannot get back into my document.
I have it up behind you.
Yeah, he's got to edit it. He's in the editing mode.
Well, I'm not editing it, but I can take notes. It's just I'm in the wrong seat here.
Do you want this paper printout, has your notes on it?
Ooh, yeah, thanks.
Yep. You can keep that and make your notes
My
on it.
reading glasses now. All right,
Here goes glasses.
that's okay. All right, where were we? Jay?
Yes. I think J4B1A.
Okay. All right, so these are some other additional landscaping requirements. Green belt is required in the commercial zone. We saw this actually 194 Main, and again, it comes down to landscaping. So if you're comfortable with the landscaping that's shown on the sheet, then we waive this condition and move on. Next one is J4B1C. This requirement actually is that the buildings must have a minimum footprint of 2,000 square feet in the C1 zone. So the waiver is to allow buildings that are smaller than 2,000 square feet. J4B1E, another landscaping requirement for the C1 zone, so that would be waived if you're comfortable with the landscaping plan. And that brings us to the dimensional requirements in the C1 district. And I think I just needed some elaboration from you guys on what the range is for lot sizes. You can just grab that from the lotting plan. The
6,400 almost.
and what you want here is not set a revised minimum. So in other words, you know, you don't want to just say every house can have a front yard setback of 10 feet. What you're doing is allowing the dimensions as shown in the plan. So most of these houses actually have greater than 10-foot setbacks in the front yards, so you want to preserve those. So the waiver would be that the individual lots shall comply or conform to the dimensions shown in the site plans, sheet 4. And if they deviate from those at all, which probably will be the case when they refine their construction drawings, then they come back for a minor modification if they need to.
And that's only during the development phase, not for the homeowner.
So if they wanted, if the homeowner wants to put an addition on or a deck, they have to come back to you for what we just described as a non-conforming, either special permit or the building inspector allows it. So are you all comfortable with these dimensional?
I see lot coverage there, right?
Oh yeah, lot coverage is missing on the,
Second, it's on the next
Yeah,
page.
we looked,
Is it?
we looked at it though, and don't believe we need a waiver from the 60%.
So if we don't grant the waiver on the lot coverage, that could have an impact down the road if someone comes in for an addition.
Mm-hmm.
That particular
Yeah,
piece.
do we want to consider that now? Maximum lot coverage? Do we want to go to 70? If they want a shed? Probably makes sense.
Yeah, we, we'll make the request now to allow us to have a minimum lot coverage of 70%,
Yeah, that should work.
just in case someone wants to throw a shed or.
And that's the maximum lot coverage, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
That's correct. So do you guys wanna allow that, or?
Well, it seems like a random number. I don't know what the lot coverage is now,
Well, it's pretty,
proposed.
is that so, is that just structures then? We're not talking about driveway and,
We were including the driveway in those numbers.
It's kind of unusual to
I mean,
allow a
60 's
waiver
uh,
for something might happen in the future, right?
Right,
I think the 60% that's allowed underlying is, I think that's
let
fine.
them fight the fight later on.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Okay, I'm back in my documents, that's good. All right, I think that wraps up the zoning bylaw, if I'm not mistaken. So now we're on to the subdivision rules and regulations. First one, section 2.3. I mean, so this is more of like a preamble to the subdivision regulations, that no person shall subdivide without going to the planning board to get subdivision approval. I don't think we normally waive this. It's not really requiring anything. The subdivision process is subsumed within the comprehensive permit, so it's not really a waiver that's needed. We are not operating under the subdivision control law. It's not applicable, so. We are applying the subdivision standards to the project just because we don't have other standards to apply. So these are standards that we look to see how the project conforms. Section 2.5, application review inspection fees. So, we generally, waive these because the subdivision control law is not applicable here. We'll have conditions in the decision that govern all these angles of inspections and peer review, as-built plans, surety, all those things that planning board typically does with subdivisions, we will do as part of the comprehensive permit. Section 332, general requirements and design standards.
Yeah, I think that was a typo. I don't think we need that one.
Yeah, I think you had the wrong section.
Yeah.
Or something, so we'll just take that out.
Yes.
Okay, 3326, surveyor shall submit calculations for lot closures build factor. Where they're asking for waivers and we're granting waivers from those things, we don't need the calculations, so it makes sense to waive that.
Yep.
The next one was withdrawn. Now we're at the vertical datum, NAVD 1988 is fine, right?
Yeah, that's the current data.
It is.
Okay. The tree plan. So, this is a submission requirement for subdivisions, that you show up and, that you provide a plan showing, trees that will be preserved, I guess, or trees within the right of way. So the request here is to waive that in light of the fact that we've reviewed and approved a landscaping plan.
One thing, the request said, waive the plan requirements, waive marking trees, and waive requirements of section 4 and 5, and allow plantings shown on plan. We want to say, and require plantings shown on plan in the decision? You're saying
Yeah,
allow it.
that's right. Yep. I think what they meant there was to allow the applicant to proceed with the plantings as shown in the plan.
Right.
Is to require them,
Right.
right? In a standard condition in the decision is that the developer must
Right.
build out the project as shown in the plans, comply with the plans, all the plans. Next one is impact studies and assessments. That's something we routinely waive. It's a requirement for subdivisions. Same thing with traffic congestion control and analyses. We did not require a traffic study or a traffic plan. Curb tie and alignment plan, we've waived this in the past. Bill's, concerned about that one. It's a private road. The next one staking. So I think the issue here is to provide some minimum staking so we know where the road's gonna be on the site for inspection purposes, but not require strict compliance with the subdivision control law, with the subdivision regulations. You guys with that?
Bill, you're okay with
I
that?
was gonna say, though, I mean, what's the length of the street? It's only like 800 feet, right? Not even 600?
Yeah. I think Bill and I talked, his concern was more at the front, kind of where it jogs. He just wants to make sure where it is. I can't argue with his logic.
Typically, what we've done on these roads is rather than a strict compliance of staking it every 50 feet, particularly this road is so short,
Right.
staking it at key points. So either whoever is reviewing it on the board's behalf or members of the board can go out and just be comfortable that the road's where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
All right, now we're to the soil surveys. So the request is to waive strict compliance with all the soil tests that the subdivision regulations require. Perk tests have been conducted on each lot for the septic system, so we're okay with what's been done.
Yeah, and again, I think the subdivision regulations are intended to generally make sure that the lot will perk, and then you go back and perk each lot individually later on. In this case, they've already perked
Each lot.
so.
All right, so the next one is submission of soil tests, test bits, borings, and et cetera, with a report that's signed and stamped by an engineer. So the request is to waive that. They've submitted the test bit data, and Bill has reviewed it and is satisfied.
Okay.
Next one, section 3.4. The section deals with bonding and covenants. We will have a section dealing with surety for completion of the infrastructure. So we'll waive this requirement in light of the conditions. 4.3 requires compliance with the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw is being waived, so this gets waived as well. 491 layout easements shall be continuous with few irregularities, minimum easement width of 20 feet. So we're gonna, we would waive that to allow the easements that are proposed, which include as we just talked about, the maintenance easement for the HOA, and the private road itself, of course, is an easement. That's a 20-foot private way. And we're gonna need some access easements for the drainage structures.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're on to pedestrian walkways, I believe. Oh, no, trees. Section 494, trees. Trees shall be located in a grass strip of the street right-of-way, so there is no grass strip here, but we just talked about there's gonna be an easement where street trees will be planted. Now we're at the pedestrian ways and paths, so this would be the provision of the sidewalk, and so I believe what's proposed is not a sidewalk, it's just a gravel or loam and seed, I guess.
No, it's,
I would say it's a walking path.
yeah, if you could pull up the plans and go to the detail sheet. I think last time we spoke, Al had wanted to do a
All
paved
the way to the end.
walkway on the north side of the road. And we thought the board was comfortable with that because because everything's close together. Al's really concerned about the aesthetics.
All the way to the end.
And we have a paver detail. Where is it, Jamie?
Next sheet? Nope, the very end, last sheet. There we go. Yep, right there. So the bottom right-hand side actually shows the detail of it. It's a precast concrete block that has gravel gravel underneath, and you put loam with seed in the openings. So it gives it a pervious approach, but also a nice, nice measure for walking. It's a low-impact sidewalk.
What is MDE? That says 4-foot MDE walkway?
That's Highway Department.
Oh, MHD?
Basically?
MD,
D?
I can't see it from there.
This like scroll is terrible on this computer.
Makes you
Oh,
jump
why? Wow.
So the walkway is proposed to be, the walkway is proposed to be 4 feet wide with a 5-foot easement.
So, can you scroll over to that paver detail again?
It's actually worked pretty good.
Yeah, yep.
We have them on several sites.
Yeah, so Dan, what this does is this allows you to, this is like almost like a pervious pavement, but or pervious paver is a better term for it.
Okay. Can you scroll up a little bit? Is there somewhere that says this is the walkway?
I think I have it on the bottom where it says, nope.
I think we're just missing something here, that this is what's proposed for the walkway, right?
We have it on the plan sets itself. We actually call it out.
It needs to be on the detail, I guess.
I understand.
I just looked at this and I saw loam and seed. I didn't, like here, it should, I think you need to add something here that said this is the paver, see this.
We can do that.
You know what I mean?
Yep, not a problem.
So the open question is what is, it's not accessible, right? So,
Well, so the issue is that this would not be conforming to what the planning would require for a sidewalk.
Right.
And the planning board did weigh in, did they actually see this design, the pavers?
I don't think,
I don't think they saw-
not the
I don't-
planning
I
board,
don't
no.
think they saw this,
No.
they were talking about just a traditional sidewalk,
Correct.
and I think their discussion, I think they were split on which way to go.
I do remember Al going into details about this.
Well,
Yeah,
He
so
did
right.
for us,
with
but not
us,
for the plan,
he
we
did.
don't
Yeah,
know
that
what
was
they
the
did
planning
at the
board.
planning board.
But I'm not sure if the planning board
sorry,
saw
I'm
that.
sorry.
Well, the email that we got from the planning board was that they voted to propose that that a sidewalk be required on one side of the street, not on both. So they actually require sidewalks on both sides.
Right.
And they, in the email that you sent to us summarizing the planning board action, they wanted to see a sidewalk on one side of the street. So, the question is, would they be concerned about this design, the paver design, versus, what do you normally require? Is it
It's asphalt,
asphalt? Okay.
yeah. Yeah, they didn't,
So they haven't seen this
no, they haven't
design,
seen that, no.
and I didn't see all of that meeting, you were there. Is that what they came down on? They recommended a sidewalk on one side?
Correct, yep. Because, so the way the subdivision regs is laid out, because it's based on a number of lots,
Right.
so it just ticks the,
Right.
this gets into, so 7 or less
7 or
would be
8,
one
right.
sidewalk, 8 or more, so it required 2, so they didn't see, obviously, the need for 2, but a sidewalk on one side.
But I do remember at length Al's biggest concern, and I think the board was starting to, or at least got it to, from what I can remember, is how little front yard you have once you start putting the sidewalk into it and it's asphalt, how close that sidewalk actually starts creeping up to the front yard, whereas where there's grass growing through this and it's maintained and still mowed like you would the rest of your lawn, how much that will help with the aesthetics and making it still seem like there's a little more front yard as opposed to a asphalt sidewalk.
So we weren't necessarily at least from my terms, weren't averse to the concept. It was just from a regulatory standpoint, I didn't want to get caught up, again, with the homeowners who are gonna be here afterwards, saying, is that a sidewalk? Does it need to be ADA? Those kind of, I wanted to be clear what it is and what it's not, right? So if you're looking for an alternative, I mean, it's some pathway, but does it have to be accessible or not? Because I don't think that would meet it.
I don't think it has to be.
No.
I think Dan made that clear last time. It's a private road, a private way.
Yeah,
It's not open to the
well,
public.
Yeah, it's sort of clear, but not super clear.
it's a little murky, and I haven't finished my research. Maybe you've looked at the.
I don't believe ADA applies to it. I think where we hit down the street, where we hit the town sidewalk, we have it's ADA compliant down there for the ramp where we connect.
Well, yeah, across the driveway
Across the
itself.
driveway,
We're
right.
crossing the driveway,
Right.
yeah. Do you-
It's ultimately the applicant's responsibility to
Right.
meet the ADA and the Mass Architectural Access Board regulations. It's not our role or authority to make decisions whether or not it complies or not. I mean,
Well-
you'll be supposed to know that, but it's not.
Yeah, well, I think, again, on the list, that's gonna be the homeowners, it'll be on them, right? So,
It is on them to, right.
because we get into where we show some specifications meeting accessibility, like you just said, Jamie, and then it's like, well, how come this but not that? And I spend quite a bit of time, not that I don't mind spending the time, but just,
I would say a couple of things. I'm sure that the grass paver won't meet the surface requirements for ADA. I think in some previous decisions, the decision has said that the development must meet ADA requirements. So I think you need to be cautious in how you word the decision. But in my opinion, I wouldn't even call this a sidewalk in the decision. I would call this a walking path
Yep.
or words to that effect.
yeah, it'd be
Yeah, I think you said it would be on the northerly side of Whitney's Way.
Yes.
And what would you do when you get to the turnaround area? How would that, as far as,
It'd go straight across.
okay.
You're gonna stripe it?
So it'll
We
be a
can.
crosswalk, like,
We can. We're not opposed to striping it, if need
I think
be.
if you stripe it, then I think you should put in
The ramps.
The ramps,
Yeah.
ramps.
And that's,
and I'm
That's-
thinking if the planning board wants a sidewalk, we should require a sidewalk.
That's my concern.
Oh, I agree. I just want to,
And I don't know if
Identify what they're
this doesn't,
proposing.
this doesn't, like you say, I don't think it meets a sidewalk. It's a walking path.
But I think the issue is, it's, again, if you recall, when we were on Zoom, one of Al's concerns was if we do a paved sidewalk there, it does two things. Number one, it chews up your front lawn. Number two, it really doesn't fit into the neighborhood with what he wants to build there. He made reference to they use this type of system in Italy and it works good. So I think this is a good compromise. It kind of meets what concerns Bill had raised at the beginning. Again, we were like, people can walk in the street, and he commented, no, I think a walking area was required. So by doing this, we think we've addressed that concern, and we think aesthetically, it'll work good for the neighborhood, and it'll function more or less like a walking path. I think it's better than a gravel walkway, if you want my opinion. So I think this has kind of gone above and beyond. This improvement is, I think it's more expensive than your paved parking, but there's a reason Al was willing to do it. So it'd really be a first-class development.
so from the applicant's standpoint, this wasn't an economic cost decision. He's of the opinion, or you're of the opinion, that this is more costly, but it's beneficial to the project because of the aesthetics.
Yes.
If we all sit on that.
So,
listen.
so if this board required it, Al may not like it, but it wouldn't cost him more to do it, but it may hurt him on sale values.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of it all, if you put that type of condition in it, Al could always decide to appeal it to HHC, and that'd be up to him.
Right.
I mean, you have the board input, that is a concern.
Yeah,
Yeah, so this will be the first time.
I don't think the planning board's seen this walking
I
path.
don't think we've ever approved.
There are a bunch of issues that I know the planning board did not weigh in on that might be worth submitting in another memo to the planning board. Maybe they can talk about it at
Okay.
the next meeting and come back to us with some feedback.
I just wanted to add that I don't know if we've ever approved anything without a sidewalk, in terms of any project like this?
Probably not, but just to play the devil's advocate,
Yeah.
not the devil, but play the other side's advocate. Yeah, it's a short street serving 8 houses, so most of all the other 40B projects that we reviewed are
Much larger.
much larger and serving a lot more people, but
I'm just trying to make room for the planning board's recommendation here, obviously.
Yep.
Their input, but if you wanna reinforce that with some
Oh.
other,
Yeah, so in terms of the other side of the issue too with this, which is if you, like typically, well, untypical, we have a grass strip and then we have a sidewalk, so we have some separation. The thing that could be a concern is if you had the asphalt sidewalk, excuse me, up against the asphalt berm, people might be more tend to park on it. So you can in effect lose what you're trying to accomplish. So that's what makes it really it's a little bit nuanced issue, as opposed to no sidewalk.
Yeah, I look at it as for me, I look at it as a safety issue more than an aesthetic issue. I appreciate the aesthetics,
Yeah.
but it's something I want. Whether it's a walking path or a sidewalk, I want something so people have an option to be safe. If they choose to run out in the road, that's their thing. But even though it's only 8, it doesn't make it, those 8 people, or those 8 families aren't any less important to me than if they were in a 40-lot subdivision.
Could you show me here on this diagram exactly where that walking path goes?
Sure.
And would this path backed up by the monolithic berm maybe keep people off it from a car than a paved
So it
surface?
just goes up that one side,
I don't know,
and then the other side
It
wouldn't
could.
have a sidewalk?
it's still going on it.
No,
It
just-
could,
Is there a
but
crosswalk in it? Where's the crosswalk?
Yeah, see, even if there's a berm, the cars go up.
Crosswalk?
actually, if you did a vertical berm,
Well, that's what I mentioned.
a monolithic vertical berm, no one's gonna drive over that, are they?
Well, they might, but the idea is that either case though, whether it's a sidewalk or this concept,
Oh,
would
I-
it be elevated?
I don't know, like it's in the construction thing, though,
Well, I don't think you can do a monolithic vertical berm.
no.
I think if you're gonna do a vertical berm, and it's similar to what's down at Boyd's Crossing isn't even a great example. But if you do something vertical, you need to pour it separately. The monolithic berm is basically,
The same pour.
yeah, it's an attachment that's on the side of the paver
Yeah.
that it can do a sloped
Yeah.
slope berm, but the
That's
vertical
like
is
the-
more like a curve.
Okay.
Be a separate, and they can do it, we just did a parking lot in Framingham with a vertical
Asphalt,
asphalt
yeah.
curb. And it's a machine operation.
Yeah, they just repaved Route 27 in Wayland, and it looks weird, but it is a vertical berm that's asphalt,
Yeah, yeah.
which I don't think any car is gonna jump, I mean, I think that's a deterrent.
Doesn't
to-
hold up to a snowplow.
That's what I was gonna say, the
Doesn't hold-
downside is the
It doesn't hold
plows.
up at all.
That brings granite into the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Cape Cod berm does.
It does.
The plows go right up and
Yeah.
over it.
Mhm.
so.
Does it go over that inlet there to the left, or does it occupy that whole inlet to the left?
No, you have a crosswalk.
But Mr. Chairman, I thought the board was comfortable with this approach at the last meeting with the pavers. And that's why we added it to the detail. Kind of the middle of the road.
I do have one question. What is the average frontage of those houses on the right?
The frontage?
Yeah, like from the foundation to the street.
Well, you're saying the setback or the front?
Yeah, the setback, I
Frontage.
think.
Oh, the setback, sorry.
On the right-hand side going up?
Yes, like going out to the street.
Well, to the house, I would say 22, with the exception on lot 8. 22 feet.
How about on lot 1, 2, and 3?
Lot 1 is 24.8. Lot 2 to the radius on the curve is 11. And from the front porch would be 15.6. Lot 3 is 23.4, and lot 4 is 23.3. Yeah, that should be on one of those plans too, all the dimensions.
So, the, the front yards on 8, 7, 6, and 5 are much bigger than the other side. Why not put the,
Was it the slope?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
what was the reason why the sidewalk went on the north side versus the south?
The slope.
The
Well,
slope?
Sorry, I think it's the slope as well as the waiting area for the school bus
Mm,
is on the north side.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it didn't make sense to have that particularly kids have to cross the street down by the intersection to get to the waiting area.
yeah, can you go to the next sheet? So this was the hard part for us to feel like
Gotcha.
with the walkway. Was over here. Originally, we did have it on that side, and we tried, but
It-
fighting, you know,
Again, I think from a safety perspective for the kids getting to the bus stop waiting area, probably makes more sense to have it on the north side in any case.
yeah.
So what would be on the right side, just a curb?
Yeah, just a
Herb to
Yeah,
grass, right?
How wide is the road?
Well, it varies, but the majority of the road is 20 feet in width. And then 1 foot of berm on each side in addition to that.
So the applicant, I think, is asking for us for some clarity on the sidewalk, that they thought they had clarity at the previous hearing. I'd like to hear from the.
I think maybe we just need to go back and see what the planning board has to say about it, if that's acceptable to them.
Well, that's what it was. We're getting the impression the planning board wouldn't accept that, so I guess I'm concerned about that.
They haven't seen it, I don't think.
I don't think they've seen it.
No, they haven't seen this, in terms of,
Right, so could we get the planning board's input on this then?
sure, so they meet on the 15th?
Well, there were a few things that have to go to the planning board anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not gonna be done tonight anyway, so.
We'll make a list and,
That makes sense.
Mm.
Just to see if they're.
I would,
Yeah.
it would help for more images too.
You mean like photos?
Yes.
I think we.
David, you said you,
I've seen, I mean, we actually have them on a couple properties.
are they in the area, or?
The one over in Norton.
Yeah, we submitted them
Oh, that's in the
already,
area. Oh, we do, yeah.
Kind of in
but I can resubmit them.
I think you did some last time.
We did,
Yeah.
we submitted, nice photos of it, but I can,
Yeah.
I can resubmit them and you can't find
Yeah.
them, Rich.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
And I think the difference here is that we're getting kind of the feeling that the planning board should really chime in on this as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Where we used it, we didn't use it for a footpath, we used it more for like a fire easement.
So actually vehicles to go over.
Yeah, vehicles go over
I
it.
think it's also important to point out that this new set of plans did not originally, when the pavers were first presented to the board,
Right.
this plan that you see here was not included because they hadn't incorporated
Yep.
the paver into the design at that point.
Right.
So you're saying this is allowing or enabling vehicular access as well, as a walking path?
No,
I mean,
Drive over it, too?
realistically, it would hold a tire
Oh,
without
okay.
a problem. But
yeah, but that's not the
that-
intention, yeah.
The intention is to make it look like it's somebody's front yard, so nobody's parking on it in reality.
So do you mow it? Is there
Yes.
grass?
Yeah,
You
still
you have
mow
to
it,
mow it?
everything.
Yep.
Would you plow it?
Snow blow it.
Snow
Snow
blower.
blower?
Yeah, snow blowing.
How does the snow blower work over these things? Do you have any experience with them, or?
From the videos I've watched, it works perfectly fine. It goes right over the top, just like if you were to snow blow a path out to your propane tank. It's
Okay.
not
I would say
problematic.
the only challenge is you have to make sure you mow it, because if you snow blow it,
Yeah,
and the grass is 6 or 8 inches high,
that's a problem, yeah,
And it is hard to shovel. It's more difficult to shovel than the snow blow.
yeah. I can see that.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's move on?
Yes.
All right, 4.10, this is the requirement of staking the sidelines of the proposed walkways along the existing roadway, which is not really an issue here because, well, I mean, there is a sidewalk along Pine Street, but,
Yes. there is.
what is the point of that anyway? What's the, do we know what the, why would they need to stake the, oh, that's when you're adding sidewalks
If you're putting- yeah,
along,
if you're putting a new sidewalk on the public way,
yeah,
as part of it. Again, it's
Okay.
staking so the town can see where it is.
Okay, and so here you're not doing that, you're only connecting the proposed walking path to the existing sidewalk.
Correct.
The next section deals with open spaces and playgrounds. None are being provided here. There's no proposal for a open space lot. So I don't know if we've ever discussed that as a group, as part of the hearing or not, whether there should have been a open space parcel or a recreational area. You know, again, I think the counter argument would be it's 8 lots. These houses will have backyards, so. And they're houses, they're not condos.
Yeah, so don't forget, on the south side, we have the retaining wall, and on the north side, Al's added a fence along the back of the property line all the way down. So each homeowner's really gonna have their own enclosed fenced yard, so I think it's a nice add.
They could put their little playground back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Although so lot 2 won't be flat, but.
Well, yeah, the fence comes from the top to the bottom, lot 1 kind of moves out a little bit, but I
But
don't
you're
know if
right.
you can do it.
There is some topographic change on lot 2, there's no question.
All right, so now I think we move on to section .12.1.
Yeah.
This is a tree section. This is prior to the removal of any trees over 4 inches in diameter in the right-of-way. That's to be marking of the trees and reviewed by the planning board. So this is a request of that provision. Any-
We waived them clear cutting the whole place, so.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking there's not gonna be
I
a
don't
tree
think
left.
there's, exactly.
Excuse me.
4-14-2, this requires offsets of 350 feet wherever possible between intersections. So this driveway or this roadway is gonna be within 350 feet of Valley Street,
Yes.
right? So they did a waiver from that, although it's directly across the street from the driveway to the commercial property.
Correct.
So that's good. Any concerns with, I mean, we have to grant it, otherwise the project wouldn't go forward. Reverse curves, so there is a reverse curve
There is.
proposed. Typically, we don't allow those. Do we not allow them, or do we allow them under certain circumstances?
I think there's some design criteria that go along with them,
Okay.
but again, in this case, with such a small private road, low-speed road, I don't think it's an issue.
Okay. So maybe, Rich, I mean, after this meeting, you and I can go through these regulations and decide if we want to ask the planning board for their input on all of them, or just, the ones that seem to be more important than others. I mean, all of these are issues that the planning board would review as part of their review process. Okay, so the next section, right-of-way widths and alignments. So I guess the planning board would ordinarily require a 24-foot wide paved surface and a 50-foot wide right-of-way. So what's proposed here is just a 20-foot road. The paved surface is the right-of-way. There's no distinction.
With a 10-foot easement on either side.
Right.
13 foot.
On,
With a 13-foot easement.
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
so that's the tree easement and
Correct.
lighting and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
yeah, maybe I'll add that to this column too, right? So it's 13 foot wide on both sides?
The easement is 13 feet, yep.
One of those houses is in the easement,
And I know,
because you told me that the setback of one of the houses was 11 feet or something.
It runs parallel with the main road, and the point that I'm talking about, if you wanna go back to the plan, I can show. See when you have a corner point that runs
Right.
over? So
Okay.
it doesn't necessarily go to the turnarounds themselves.
Okay, I
The
got
tree
that.
easement wrapping up on the side.
Yeah, that one on this, so you have that little spur on lot 3.
Yes.
I mean, what's that setback on the spur side?
If you go up 1 or 2 sheets, Stephanie, should have the dimensions. Nope, oh yeah.
Yeah, see, that's 10 foot, that's only 8 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a 13-foot, you know what I mean, they're not even in the
Exactly.
setback.
Yep, but it doesn't run up that spur. It runs just up the
Oh,
main.
it only runs on Whitney?
Looks like
Right.
when you
Yeah,
jog,
right.
so
Okay.
Correct, right?
looks like you've jogged it, that's the dash line.
Oh, that might be the case too. Let's see. Can you go to the sheet above this, Stephanie, please? Scroll up a little bit. Yeah, it cuts straight across.
Must be a different line.
That's too responsive.
Okay.
Should get a new, mouse.
Okay, 14.7.1, ways shall be laid out to intersect as nearly as possible at right angles. No right-of-way shall intersect any other right-of-way at less than 75 degrees, and then you have the offset requirement of 350
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah.
So the only waiver you're at from this section is that offset?
350 feet, yeah.
Got it. Okay, the next one is site distances at intersections. So, yeah, this one I didn't really understand why you needed this. I thought that our site distance section tracked ASHTO,
And it may.
and you're saying you're okay with ASHTO.
So, yeah, I'm not sure it tracked it completely. I think when we were going through it, we figured it was better just to default to the ASHTO standards, because that's what everyone's familiar with. And then Bill had suggested putting the triangle diagram there at the street intersections. We have no issue doing that. We can get that.
Yeah, because the traffic engineer did reference the dimensions,
Right.
but he didn't provide a sketch or a diagram. So we'll take that information and put it on our plan, so it's very clear. He's already determined it in the report.
Right.
All right, so you're okay if we say that all applicable ASHTO site distance requirements shall apply to the design of to the design of the roadway?
Yeah, I believe so.
What's Rich's take on that?
Bill,
Oh, I'm sorry.
are you okay with that, or?
I'm okay with it, yeah, I believe, again, we didn't do a full review of the traffic memo, but I
Right.
believe in the geometry of the road that they meet the actual requirements for site distance.
Yeah.
I mean, this road is a low-speed road. You're
Right.
talking about 15 miles an hour.
Yeah, he addresses it in his report.
And he does, yeah. Yep, he
Really
does.
the speed on.
115.
Pine Street, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And there is there's obviously a lot of room there to do vegetation clearing.
Oh, yeah,
You
yep.
know, it's in the public right-of-way. That is the right-of-way, right? That big parcel. Actually, can you go to the,
You want the cover sheet with the aerial photo, I think, where we have the kind of lineage. Maybe not, that doesn't
No, I
show
think
it
it-
well.
Maybe sheet
The
4 or
existing
5.
conditions?
there you go.
Yeah, that,
One right above it.
I think, yeah.
that sheet right there.
So this is all public, right? This is part of the right-of-way,
It
Pine
is,
Street?
yeah.
So your driveway's here, you can clear, but we can clear this area going this way, and then going this way, you're coming right out to here, so I can imagine there's an issue, but.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's just to assure the board that
Yeah, where the,
there's public or the applicant's control over the project.
okay. Okay, so is the board okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, vertical alignment, okay, we're not gonna have any vertical site distance issues here, so that's fine.
The school bus bench might be a little vertical. Just
that?
kidding, being fresh.
All right, so now we're up to cul-de-sacs, right? So typically a cul-de-sac would be required, they're asking for a waiver, they are providing that spur,
Yes.
so we're okay with that. Street cross sections, yeah, we see this asked all the time, they want a waiver from having to do cross sections at 50-foot intervals, except the cross sections that they've already shown on the plans, and that's acceptable. It's a private road. Walkways on existing roadways. This looks like a repeat of the last one we just saw, a staking requirement, 418, right?
Mhm.
Requiring staking for the walkways along existing roads. So,
Excuse me, Dan?
Yep.
Let's go back to section 417 on the cross sections.
Yep.
Where the requirement is cross sections to be drawn at 50-foot stations and so forth, and we're agreeing to waive it subject to conditions to be set forth. But my concern is, if you can help me out with it, is in the decision, how do we, I'm just trying to get some protection so that I know it's gonna be a private road, but if for some reason it's not engineered or built properly, and the town has to come in and rebuild it, and then chase to get repaid, I wanna try to avoid that. So upfront is the way we can avoid it, so I'm trying not to cut engineering out of it. The early planning, if you see my point.
Yep. So, and you're right, what you wanna make sure of is there's enough information on the plan showing the grading and the limits of grading. So the plan has a profile, which will show the elevation of the center line of the road. It has a typical section, which will show the width of the road, then it has proposed contours. So essentially, all the information you would see on a roadway cross-section is provided by those three things. And cross-sections, they're still used mostly on state highway jobs. They were more effective prior to the advent of CAD and that type of work, because they help define the limit of the grading on the edge of the road. But typically, again, particularly with a smaller road like this, if you have a profile, if you have a typical section, you have proposed contours, it's enough information to be able to construct the road.
And that would be today's industry standards for something like that, in
Yeah,
your opinion?
again, except usually on state highway jobs, not Mass DOT type jobs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the only time that we see it as well as on the Mass Dot, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Just to further that a little bit, with today's construction, typically, the proposed model that has the contours and all the information in it is actually loaded into the grading machines, the dozers and the graders. That controls grading rather than, all the operator is doing is controlling the speed going forward. The GPS on the machine is actually controlling the grading and the direction, so.
Wow, I could be a doze operator then.
Pretty much.
does the planning board waive this? Do we know, or?
I don't know if they do, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a little antiquated. It might be a
It's
little
antiquated.
Our cross-section on each one, except for down where it widens to 24 feet, would look the exact same, all in the 20-foot section. It would not change. It would
Okay.
be the exact same thing.
That's what the typical cross-section does. It's applied along the profile.
Okay.
To answer your question earlier, Dan, I think it's something when you get to the end, in terms of with Bill doing the review and sitting in the place of, well, Beta does the review for the planning board on the other side of it. So I'm not sure the planning board is really, we can talk about it, but a lot of these, they would defer to the peer review engineer anyway. So,
Truthfully, I don't know if people have been asking the planning board for a waiver from that requirement.
Just curious.
yeah.
Does Beta do the peer reviews for the applications?
Beta does, but somebody else at Beta.
Yeah,
You.
different
Okay.
individual, but,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so staking of the sidewalks on Pine Street, or proposed sidewalks on Pine Street, they've asked for a waiver because they're actually not even proposing any sidewalks on Pine Street, so that doesn't make sense. Okay, 4.19.2. Now we're into the stormwater sections. The first section has to do with soil tests. The waiver's been asked for, test pit data has been provided already, the soils are permeable. So Beta's not concerned about that issue. 4.19.4, this is a submittal requirement for testing and hydrological analyses. So we've typically waived this in the past, subject to the requirement that the project conform to the state stormwater standards and handbook. The applicant is fine with that. 4.19.7.1, requiring a separate roof recharge facility. That's asked to be waived since there are no roof recharge facilities.
Correct.
I think we asked you to look at that, and
We did.
it didn't look like it was gonna be feasible. The next section is design criteria 419.7.3, requiring 4 feet of naturally occurring permeable soil, and the applicant is providing 2 feet, but at least 2 feet, but less than 4. Beta's looked at the groundwater mounting analyses, is not concerned about the need for more than 2 feet, right?
Correct. The extent of the groundwater mound isn't gonna impact the road or any of the houses.
419.7.4, this appears to refer or deal with roof water recharge systems. Those are not being proposed here. Then we've got the surface stormwater basin standards. And I had some questions about this one because I thought,
I can answer this one pretty simply for
Right.
you. There are certain types of basins that you can use for infiltration in which you have grass-lined bottom with a raised inlet structure like a catch basin grate, and underneath it have a leaching field, whether it be Caltex or chambers or stone and pipe. And that's what this is clearly talking about, is allowing the water to come into that basin, build up a minimum of 6 inches, and then be able to flow into the catch basin grate and get into the leaching field underneath. In our case, what we're doing is we're going through treatment system prior to it getting into our infiltration basins themselves. The basin itself is a sand bottom, and that allows easy maintenance and also a nice big surface for leaching back into the ground. So we're not proposing frames and grates in the basins as described in this section.
but your basin is an your basins are infiltration basins, right?
Correct.
So does this even apply? Isn't this saying infiltration systems that are in the bottom of detention basins?
Yeah, that is correct. Yep, so that if that is the case, that would not be applicable. Access level berm to provide around basin. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was the first portion or if there's a subsequent section that we were
Right,
looking for.
yeah, there may have been something in there.
Foot. Yeah, is that all part of it going onto the second sheet?
Yep.
All right, so that would mostly be why, is those setback distances that we're looking for relief from. So, but yeah, you're right.
All right, so can we take out the first thing that says waive requirement of infiltration system in the bottom of basin?
I have no problem with that. We're not a detention
Yeah, okay.
facility.
Just so we aren't confusing it. All right, and so now the next one is, you're wanting to waive requirement of the 15-foot level berm around the basin, and that's accessibility. Is that why that's there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
And do we want to waive that? I would think that we'd want to have a level area for,
I think we talked about that on this, plus on 190 Forum Street. With the basins being as small as they are, it's not it's not like a gigantic basin where you need a large excavator to be able to get around the entire basin to maintain it. In this case, you'll probably see the normal maintenance done with a 5-gallon bucket and a shovel. Big case would be a bobcat, a little skid steer going in and, you know, scraping the sand. This is gonna be a very small venture for maintenance.
And how do you
Yeah.
feel?
Yeah, no, I think that's correct. We have talked about this before. Typically, you'd want it, particularly if the town needs to maintain it,
Hmm.
with the equipment that the town is using versus the equipment that the HOA will use. They're, it shouldn't be construed as they're not accessible. They are still accessible for maintenance.
And fencing, we don't need fencing because they're small basins, we're not concerned about.
Yeah, they drain within the 72-hour window, less than that. They're also not excessively deep. I don't see the need for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're not gonna hold water to any depth for any length of time. Some people have issues with fencing as it is because sometimes it can trap wildlife and other things.
Yeah, we were tasked with proving that in a 100-year storm, it will be empty within 72 hours.
And I believe we've waived the fencing requirement in the past. I'm not sure if we did it from 194.
Yeah, I believe it
I think
was.
we did too.
What could the depth of the water be?
I would have to look at the plan.
I think it's on the grading and drainage plan that shows the 100-year water surface elevation. I think if you maybe zoom up on lot 1 a little bit more. So, one system is underground, so there won't be any water in that one, surface water. I can't read it, what 4P says, does 4P say?
4P, I believe you're gonna see just about 2 feet of water, because we keep a foot of freeboard.
I guess, I thought it said I thought it had the
Yeah.
water surface on the plan, so maybe
It
not.
doesn't. But typically with these designed, we try to provide a foot of freeboard, and I'm sure we provided that.
Yeah, and
So your
Yeah.
top is 195.2, so that means 194.2 would be our 100-year elevation, and the bottom of your basin is 192. So, that's 2.2 feet,
Yeah, 2.5 feet.
yeah. And then the other basin, I'm sure, is relatively similar.
Do you have any outlets, outfalls for either basin?
Nope.
You don't need it because they're so
It-
big, you're not gonna ever have to.
They're designed to handle by integrating into the ground fully. Yeah.
And is there an outlet for the?
Underground drainage basin, it was recommended that we provide an emergency overflow. I think that was Bill's idea. So what we did was we put a catch basin number 5, in the ground. And what it's designed to do is make sure that the system is fully surcharged all the way before it would then come up through that catch basin grate and then go through the grass and not out, it would head towards the pavement, but it would go through the grass area first, and hopefully mitigate the situation there.
All right, so the revised setbacks for the surface systems, you need 2 feet at one location.
Correct.
Front setback of 10 feet in a location. Building cellars or basements 15 feet. Street intersections 50 feet. Is there any concern about an infiltration system being 15 feet from a foundation?
There could be, if it were up gradient,
Yeah, they're all down gradient of the basins,
yeah.
of
So,
the foundations rather. If they were up gradient and the water from the infiltration system, again, this goes to groundwater rounding, would flow towards the foundation.
So these are flowing away from foundations.
Only away from-
yeah, so if you were to look at that
I see,
basin in
okay.
particular, okay. Basically, in the 100-year storm event, and even beyond, the water can't build up enough in which it would flow into the basement
Yeah,
of the houses.
Valley Street's flooded before.
Exactly.
Where is it 15 feet? Where's the 15 foot? It looks like it's well away, more than 15 feet from the.
What we try to do is take the high water mark usually when we project a storm and do the measurement there. Sometimes we will take the berm as well. Depends on what the town's regulations state.
But is it for lot 1? Is that where you need that relief?
I believe it is for lot 1. And I also,
But you just said that didn't you say the 100-year storm was gonna be at 194?
yeah, I think the 15-foot setback is gonna be to the infiltration chambers, to right there.
Like here?
Yes.
But again, that's, these are downgraded from the house.
That's correct, yeah.
All right, so we're good with those?
Yep.
And are you okay with my language that I put in there, in italics?
Yeah, I think so.
And as we talked about, you're gonna create 2 separate lots for those
Right.
basins.
It's, yeah, 2 for the basins and then 1 for the road.
Okay.
Yep.
The next section is subsurface recharge system, so that's pond 3P3, 3P, whatever.
Yeah, 3 is to the right, yep.
So that should actually say pond 3P, not 4P, right? Could you go back to that plan, Stephanie?
It is 4P, right?
The subsurface?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, it is 3P for the subsurface.
Okay.
Yep.
So that should say 3P. And actually that, that will be on its own lot, so I think that can come out.
Okay,
Because that, you initially asked for a waiver because that the bylaw, the regulation requires it to be on its own lot, and they're going to do that, so. Strike that out. If after tonight you think you still need that, let me know, and we can go back to it.
okay.
But you still need the relief from the setback requirements.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so no problems with the setbacks on these? Okay. So I guess I'm sorry, going back to the surface basins, I'm not sure then where you need that setback for 15 feet.
Stephanie, can we go back to that plan for a second? Kinda looks like the back of that house may need it, but I'll have to double check for sure. This, if we were taking from, possibly from this point right down to the top of the berm, right here, this setback. Sorry, this one right here. So that could possibly be the 15 feet in question.
It says in description though, Dan, building cellars or basements 100 feet. And then the requested is 15 feet.
Right.
And you don't think it's even within 15 feet?
It looked like it's further away to me, but it's,
I'll double
why
check.
don't you go back and check?
I will.
Either way, you're gonna need a waiver. It's just not, I'm not sure if it's 15 or if it's.
Yep.
All right, so now we've talked about subsurface, the subsurface, system, no concern with the setbacks there. Next section, is staking prior to construction. And this is staking both sides of the street right-of-way at 50-foot intervals. And we're agreeing to waive that, subject to the peer review engineer providing you with instructions on where to stake it, right? At specific points along the way.
Yeah, yep.
Minimum width requirements, 5.2.1.1. So we talked about this before in a prior section. We're waiving the width requirements for the right-of-way and for the paved surface. There will be, and the grass strip, so it'll be a 20-foot wide road with a, did we decide what the berm would be? You're proposing a Cape Cod berm.
Yeah, 12-inch Cape Cod berm on each side, correct.
And are we okay with that?
I would say you may wanna defer that until you get a opinion
Sidewalk.
from the planning board on what the sidewalk may be.
walking path.
Yeah, because if it's a sidewalk, we may wanna have a curb.
So can I go back to that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I got a text from Al, and at the last meeting, there was a consensus that there was an agreement at the last meeting, that the sidewalk was okay. What we proposed was okay, and that's what we had moved forward with. He said Joe agreed to that as well, just to try to remind everyone what's going on. So when we come back to that at the end, we're still pushing for that.
This case, 1 of 3 voting. but-
That's right. I don't get the vote.
Okay, so moving on, next section is 5263. This is the requirement for a densely graded crushed stone for the base. Or no, I'm sorry, as-built plans should be provided prior to the issue of the binder, so, what we've done in the past is waived the as-built plan in lieu of a modified Form K. So that's a document, that's a document the planning board uses?
Yeah,
Yeah, so what happened, we discussed this at 194 Main Street, and there was a meeting, I think it was Bill, Jamie, Rich,
think it was Rich,
and, was Al there? I don't remember, I wasn't present, but you guys had taken the planning board's form and kind of reduced it down to, agree upon what inspections were required and all that stuff, and I think everyone was comfortable with it. Do you remember that?
Yeah, just so the board knows, the Form K lays out the planning board's requirements for inspection of subdivision roads. And I think in the case of 194, again, it was not gonna be a public way, it was more of a parking lot type situation. I would say that the same probably applies here. It's gonna be a private road, it's a small road, so, again, it's up to the board's discretion how often or when you want somebody to be out there on your behalf looking at the road, but, I think it makes sense to waive it and go through the same process with modifying with the Form K.
Yeah, and if the board's amenable, I have no problem meeting with Bill and Rich, even if it's on Zoom, and going through and doing one just for this project, because there may be things that weren't applicable to 194 Main that should be here, and vice versa.
yeah, it'd be good to just kind of, in terms of, just to cover it for
Yeah,
this one.
you're
It's a
okay
little
with that,
bit
right?
different.
Yeah.
Okay, that work for you?
Okay, so that's actually not a planning board form, that was something that was created.
Well, actually, I mean, technically it is.
Will
Yeah, it
cost.
is a, Form K it has a sequence of construction and inspections associated with
Right.
different progression.
It's a modification of the planning board's Form K.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's,
Basically, it outlines inspections and construction inspections that Bill's gonna do on site, or his team will do on site, that we're accountable for, or the builder is.
So, I guess the question is, do you mind, Bill, having this discussion offline before the next meeting, and Rich can orchestrate this and come up with that modified form that you're talking about?
Yeah.
And then we can submit that as part of the record?
I think that makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Okay. You okay with that, Rich?
So that'll be like a modified Form K.
Yep. But we'll submit it for the record, so that if there's any question, we can go to it and say this is what they agreed to.
Agreed, yep.
Okay.
Okay. Next section, 528 and 529, slope granite edging shall be required on both sides of the traveled way. So we're waiving that to allow the Cape Cod berm, pending planning board input on the sidewalk. 52.10, walkways, walkway width, paving, grass strip, et cetera. So I think we pull that until we have a final decision made on the sidewalk or walkway. 5332 catch basins, the request is to waive the, catch basins on both sides of the road, so there'll be catch basins on which side? Both sides.
Well, yeah, it's all coming down, so, but yes.
Okay. And we've done that in the past, I believe. Same thing with the inlet stones, so we're waiving that except for the double grate catch basin. Where's that?
I think it's the opposite. We're suggesting they be required, except that there's a double grade catch basin
Yeah.
sort of at the bottom of the hill down by Pine Street. Except for that basin, we would
Shall be.
suggest that there be inlet stones.
Do you, so I think one of the issues, we have with that is not the, we understand what the function is. I think it's more of the aesthetics and how do you make it work with the Cape Cod berm.
Yeah,
And that was the reason we're asking for a waiver from it.
I mean, there are transition blocks. It looks funky when you actually go out and look at it. It looks odd. At the end of the day, it's not a deal breaker for us. It's just an odd look. Yeah, no, I get it. Function wise, yeah.
I disagree that it looks odd.
Can you show us what it would look like?
Yeah, I'm sure we can print it up. I mean, it goes from asphalt into, a stone type structure, and then it transitions. So you've got your sloped berm that then transitions into granite,
Yep.
and then into the flat stone.
There is a granite piece
Mhm.
that makes that transition
Yep.
from the berm up to the,
Yeah, you can get a sloped granite that comes
Absolutely.
into it.
It does, it slopes
So the-
right down.
So the Cape Cod comes into the sloped, and then it goes into that granite curb,
Yeah.
or flow in, or whatever.
Yeah,
You
it's
can-
just-
You can get them, and they don't look bad.
which makes it look aesthetically pleasing.
Makes it look really nice.
Again, I don't think that's a deal breaker for us by any stretch. It's just not something, when we talked about it as a team, we didn't like the look of it, so.
Where's the conclusion that we're?
What are your thoughts?
I thought it looked good. I have them on other properties, and they look fine, and they work. They actually protect the catch basins from the snowplows better than the Cape Cod berm just going directly into them, so.
They provide a factor of safety, so if the grate were to get clogged with debris,
Yep.
at least you have the inlet opening
Yes.
to allow water to get in as well.
Okay.
I lean towards the,
All right.
Just don't walk any small dogs near it, that's all.
What was that?
Just don't walk any small dogs near
okay.
it, that's all. No problem.
Okay, the only question I had on that was I looked up that section at the leaching pits.
Yeah,
What's a leaching pit?
I reread that today. That can be, we can strike that out, but a leaching pit is exactly what it sounds like. It's a concrete cylindrical structure wrapped with stone in most cases that water goes into to infiltrate into the ground.
Like a cesspool, like a cesspool.
Cesspools technically don't have crushed stone around them, usually. It just,
It's a catch basin that doesn't have an outlet, so the water goes in and infiltrates out of it.
It also has a permeable bottom instead of a concrete bottom.
yep. So it goes out the bottom and the sides.
So you don't.
So we don't need
this.
We don't need that.
So I'm taking that
We
out.
have no leach pits.
Okay, next one was withdrawn 5.6, 5.7 retaining walls. All right, so you have walls that are gonna exceed 4 feet.
We do.
And the way we dealt with this for Abbeville is that we required higher walls than 4 feet to be designed by an engineer, reviewed by the board's consultant prior to construction, and that the walls be made of a ready rock type, with a molded stone face or a field stone veneer.
So I think my only objection to that is that I think Al likes to do stuff cast in place,
He does.
and the ready block would prohibit him from doing so. And he likes to have a field stone veneer on his
Yeah.
things. So I mean, you'd get the same
Yeah.
look. It's just the method would be. I'd rather him have the option, block or
Yeah.
cast in place.
Yeah, so the poured in place concrete wall is probably a better one with the veneer for him than having the individual ready rock blocks.
So I'll change this to a what I would say cast in place.
Cast in place or block wall with
Yep.
the veneer, yeah.
Okay, is that good with the board?
And if they're over 4 feet, they'd still be reviewed by the engineer.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I defer it to you, but a cast in place, you have no permeability. Whereas if you have a wall and the neighbors have water coming down, there's still a way for it to get out of that wall instead of being pushed somewhere else.
Right, well, with the cast in place, typically you would have some kind of
Like a,
a weeping hole through the wall to allow that hydrostatic pressure to dissipate. But you don't want the water to build up behind the wall
correct,
and start to force the wall to tip over. So you have.
or find another way out.
Or find another way out, but typically with cast in place, you'll have
You still have the weep holes.
holes periodically.
Okay, 5.9 street trees. Street trees will be planted in the grass strip, so we've already talked about that. We're not doing street trees per se. We're gonna have the trees in the landscaping plan within the easement area. Street lights, same thing. We've already talked about that. Maybe add that to the list of topics to bring to the planning board. If they have concerns about
Sure.
the way this is being proposed.
Tree trees?
Streetlights.
Yeah, the light.
Trees and lights.
The trees and the lights being essentially on private lots within easement areas, rather than within a right-of-way, which is the way it's normally done.
So actually, the board prefers the trees on the private lots with easements, so,
Oh, really?
yeah, so we can defer the maintenance to the homeowner.
If they do it.
They do it, yeah. What was the other one you said?
Lights.
Streetlights. Well, no, those would be in the right of way, but they don't, they haven't really, they've had streetlights at the intersections and curves, but beyond that, they haven't really had streetlights in the subdivisions. They've waived them.
Like them intersections, dead ends and.
Dead ends. They've had attached, the homeowners have put posts in to act as a street light, but they're not all wired in together. So that's the difference that we're talking about here.
Well, no, we're not wiring the lights together.
Yeah, it's
Each homeowner is gonna have it
Right.
their own,
So
but
that,
again,
they have done that, that's what they've done,
yeah, I think, so we're in keeping with what they're doing then,
yeah.
okay.
But it sounds like the planning board doesn't normally require streetlights except for at intersections, so it's not, right? Is that what you're
I
saying?
don't know how the visibility's gonna be, if they could just turn the light off.
Yeah, they've been attached, trying to think, so Nichols Way, Winding Hollow was the last one, they had, you know, a street, not a street light, but, you know, a light at your house that's near the street to be lit.
Mm.
I can't think of Norway Farms, what they end up doing, it might be a similar thing. Again, a street,
Private lampposts,
private
but
lampposts,
those are
exactly.
not tied together, they're
They're
not
not tied together
on a
individually.
HOA meter, they're just.
Right.
Okay.
In this case, we're gonna have streetlights for each house in front of in the easement.
Yeah,
That's great.
Right,
Yep.
and then they'll be
And not-
required that they stay on.
and not tied together, but they're gonna
Right,
be.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh, they'll have a requirement that they stay on, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Dusk to dawn.
All right. Bounds. I don't think I've seen this request before.
Yeah, when I was looking at the bound placement based on where the property lines come, it didn't make sense to put the bounds at the intersection of the right-of-way and the property line. And this does happen from time to time, so I called Bill, and I asked him if he thought we should look at maybe, offset bounds or whatever, and he was in agreement that instead of putting it in the pavement, it makes sense to do offset bounds, which are used. In our case, I think the regulation's pretty clear that it talks about at intersections and points and change in the road. In our case, we have placed a tremendous amount of offset bounds on the property, so no one could ever question where their lot is. But we're asking for that waiver in this case. I think it makes a lot of sense.
So, do your plans show the locations?
They do.
Can you just point that out, and I
course.
can reference it in the,
Can you go to the page 3, Stephanie? Third from top. This one right here. So, one of these little boxes with a circle is a push box. And you can see it's 2-foot offset in cases as shown. We do have a detail over to the side, because up at the top, we had a few cases in which we couldn't go perpendicular. And so what we did was we provided the bearing and distance for the boundary, be 2 feet off, but if we went perpendicular, we're falling off the property here. And if we went perpendicular here, it would have been about 2 inches from the side lot line, which would have confused people. Over in this area down here for this detail, what we did was we also had the same thing, where if we went perpendicular, it would have fallen off. So we came back on the bearing and distance, and we gave tie lines, just so you can mathematically recreate it on both sides of the road.
If I could just add one thing, so I think that's fine, I think we agree with the offset bounds. But also part of that section is the material and installation of the bounds being in accordance with Mass DOT standards. I wouldn't say waiving that.
It's just concrete bounds, right?
Yeah,
Fine, concrete
Yeah.
bounds are good.
no problem.
so the only waiver request is just the location of the bounds, and
Correct.
we'll allow the location as shown on sheet 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. Section 7 is site plan approval. We dealt with this before, site plan approval. The site plan review process is subsumed within the comprehensive permitting process under chapter 40B. And that wraps it up for subdivision regs, and the next section is the Board of Health rules and regulations. And the first one is the fees. You actually structured it broad than the fees, but I think the fees should be tackled separately, because we've dealt with this in every other 40B project, dealing with the fees and then the rest. And I look back at all of our other projects, and I don't think we've waived the fees for the individual lots. So were you actually asking for a waiver from?
I think, we asked for a waiver, but, I see here it was 525 unit, and is that the norm for a single-family house? And, yeah, I think that's fine. We can withdraw it if you like, I guess, for that part of it.
I think we did waive something, we waived fees for the 194, but that was the only time we've ever waived fees.
Right.
And this comes up in all of our projects, so I think to be consistent with the other projects, it makes sense to deny that part of it. And then the next three, all deal with provisions of the Board of Health regs that are more strict than Title V, and we've consistently waived those for other projects. And then the groundwater supply regs, we consistently waive that as well, unless there's a compelling need for it, which this is not within the Aquifer Protection District, so we're not concerned. Let's see, is that the end? No.
And your
Okay.
fees.
Next, so the next section is the general, kind of a catch-all category of miscellaneous regs dealing with security and bonds, DPW, water rates and fees. Every applicant has asked for this, and the zoning board has always denied it. So, hope we don't feel too strongly about it.
And the last one was permit fees?
Yeah, the last one is building permit issuance and fees. So done in the past is a lot, this actually is consistent with past projects, allowing the applicant to pay the $500 for the foundation permits and use that as an offsetting building permit application fees, but that's the only waiver. They still have to pay the regular building permit application fee.
Mhm.
And that's what you're asking for.
Right, yep.
Okay. And that's consistent with 194 Main
Okay.
as well. All right, that brings us to the end. I've got a list of follow-ups.
Okay.
We'll talk to the planning board about a few of these issues. We've got some follow-ups for Jamie.
Yep.
He wants to bring up the sidewalks again.
No, I'm not, I'm done, my phone's quiet, so.
Yeah.
Anything else?
But it's worth mentioning, I think we were polled at the time that Al
I
made the
think so.
presentation. I think we were facing the decision based on, we may not get any sidewalks, right? And Al was making his pitch for this other option of doing this. I think we were asked to say if we liked the concept or not.
Right.
I guess I was opposed to not having anything there. I guess we kind of leaned towards that being one of the options. I can't remember what each of the members said that night, but it was, I'd rather have the planning board at least chime in on their opinion of it.
Yeah, the planning
Unless
board
I-
does these regularly, they see this regularly, we
I
don't.
don't think they've seen
I'd like-
this, though. I've never
well,
seen this concept.
Not, maybe it's not this concept, but I'd like to,
Yeah.
I didn't see all of that hearing that night, I watched a little bit of it.
Mm.
I'd like to get more definitive input from them, it's just helpful to us.
It's fine.
And also on the street lighting, if they wanna talk about that, and the nuances with the homeowners association,
Yeah,
and
we
they
can
might
talk
have
about
some
this.
guidance for us on any of those areas, I'd love to have it, love to hear it.
Is Al chiming in?
Yeah.
He just again reiterated that the board was polled and he spent considerable time and money having his design team do this and hopes that you'll stick with the sidewalk as shown.
Okay. Thank you, Al.
Stephanie, where are we on the public hearing deadline?
I believe that's the 18th.
Yeah, so we'll be outside it.
What's the current deadline?
I want you to read.
I'm sorry?
What's the current
Huh?
deadline for us to close the hearing?
The 18th.
18th of July.
July, okay. And what's our next meeting date?
21st.
July
21st.
21.
Text Al.
He just, yeah, he's asking us to read his last text.
Okay, for the record, at the April meeting, we had extensive conversations about our proposed paver, eco-friendly walkaway. After at least 20 minutes, Tim polled the board. Josephine and Joe got a consensus this would be an agreeable alternative to an asphalt sidewalk that would ruin the look of people's front yards. Based on that poll and consensus, I gave my design team to spend a considerable amount of time and money designing what was agreed on. I don't understand how the board doesn't remember that.
All right, so the next hear, I'm sorry, the next hearing date is what? July 20?
July 21st.
July 21st, and the deadline is July,
18th.
okay. So, do you wanna?
Yeah, we can extend the deadline.
Okay.
My question for the board is, at the next meeting, I would hope we're going through a decision and all that. I think Josephine's going away for the month of August, is that
Yeah, from August 10th to August 31st, yes.
right?
Cameras
So-
at my house, if anyone's watching.
So we're hoping to maybe get a draft in place and at least get it wrapped up for the 21st. I don't think that's unachievable.
I agree with you. That being said, I think Josephine can participate remotely. Norfolk's adopted that bylaw, right?
No,
You haven't?
no, we didn't.
Okay.
No, that's part of
Well,
the,
you'll be here on the 21st, correct?
yeah. should we-
31st, the 10th to the 31st.
No, July
Yeah, but
21st.
Oh,
July
yes,
21st,
yes,
she'll be here.
I'll be in July, yes.
Should we prepare it at a meeting?
Were you,
So-
were you referring to remotely in August, or you just?
Yeah, if we
I
had
don't
another
think
meeting in
you
August.
won't be available remotely.
I
because
I
you'll
don't
be-
know what the Wi-Fi situation is over there, but I'm going overseas, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you may not be able to participate even remotely.
The 7-hour difference, I can give it a try. I won't
Yeah.
know what the 3G is like till I get there.
Should we
I will send an
prepare-
email.
Should we prepare to have an optional meeting in early August if necessary?
Well, why don't we have the meeting, yeah, why don't we have the meeting July 21st?
Right.
See where that takes us.
Do you want to set aside a date now on the calendar?
I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, just in case.
You said you're leaving August 10th?
Yes. August 10th is what day of the week?
See, I could go instead of you. You stay here, because they don't need my signature.
Oh, you're on the board, aren't you?
Yeah, but I haven't been a part of this one since the beginning, so
Yeah, able to vote.
it's not my vote.
There's no way to participate.
We like your input.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
I only input, that's it.
Can I defer my vote? No.
No, doesn't work that way. Can't give you proxy or anything else.
So do you wanna try for, how the schedule look for August, the week of August 2nd, the 4th, of Wednesday? That would be 2 weeks after July 21.
It's fine with me. I mean, at that point, it should be just final crossing the Ts type of stuff on the conditions.
Even the 21st, you may even be able
But
to
in case
finish it by
in
then.
case there's a hiccup or something we don't have,
You
I'm
could.
just trying to
Yeah,
get a
the-
marker
the-
in the
the-
ground for
the-
everybody that we can.
The 4th would be good for us. I think Jamie's away, but at that point, I don't think we need
I'm away on
Jamie
the
or Bill.
21st.
Yeah.
I think we need the board
The
really
21st, yeah.
available, and Dan and
Right,
yourself
Yeah,
at that point.
just as a backup, you know, just to have that.
Well, the 21st, we'll be talking about some substantive conditions,
Right.
so it'll be good for your team
I'll
Right,
be
but I'm
gone
talking
on the
about the 4th
21st.
after that.
on, but
I can send someone.
We'll get someone
Yeah.
else from his office.
in case a technical issue comes up.
Yep.
Are you available, Bill?
I'm available on the 21st, not on
Yeah.
not on August 4th.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm being asked, who adopts the remote bylaw for the town by Al? Who would be the one that does that? I think this.
Like that method?
Right, we just did.
So it would be the select board.
Select board, okay.
I can look into it and get back to you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
I-
it's,
Yeah, unless there was something unique in the law that just passed about remote participation, I don't remember if a town had to adopt it, but I know we can have hybrid meetings. But the town may have to adopt the hybrid approach through the select board or town meeting. All right, so I'll check on
yeah,
that, but
I know we don't
So
have
we'll-
remote, they
we'll
didn't,
probably
they
continue this to
deferred
July
on remote
21st.
participation last time this came up.
I don't have time yet, but,
Right.
and then, at that, so we'll probably continue this to July 21st, and then on the 21st, we can then, if we need be, go to the 4th.
Correct.
Hmm.
So just for the record for tonight, do we have an extension of the public hearing deadline by the applicant?
Yes.
And you're extending that to what?
How about August 4th?
August 4th.
Wasn't the date we just said?
Yep,
The outside
that's
date.
the outside date.
Right.
Not-
So I gotta
July
get that-
21st is what they're hoping for,
Yeah, no,
but
but this could get filed with the clerk, right? Within that timeframe? Or not?
I just agreed to extend it to that date.
He's extending the public hearing deadline to August 4th if we need it. We don't need to do it, but if we need it, we have it to August 4th.
Oh, all right, so we'll see when we get to August 4th,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
All right, I see what you're saying. All right. never
We
mind.
do need to extend it past the 18th, though. Correct?
He just did that, I'm just saying.
Okay, so you covered, all right.
So we might need it just so we can get the decision recorded, right? Or filed with the clerk?
No, because that's another 40 days after the hearing's closed.
Oh, 40, I'm sorry, all right, never mind.
Excuse me.
then. Okay.
So Stephanie, I think we need a time for July 21st to continue this to.
Sure, the only thing that we don't have available is 7 PM, so anytime after.
So 7:15
At this location?
at this location. Yeah, so can I get a motion to continue this hearing to July 21st at 7:15?
So moved.
seconded.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 You want a roll call?
Sure, do a roll call.
Tim Martin?
Aye.
Joe Sebastiano? Josie Kordahi?
Aye.
David Axberg?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
appreciate you guys having
Thank
us
you.
in tonight.
All right. Let's see where we are here.
Well, the minutes should be knocked off, by the way.
Right. Well, do we want to approve the minutes for June 16th?
Good night, thank you.
Good night.
Thanks.
If everyone's read them all, I can make a motion
Yeah,
that we,
go
yeah,
right
so I make a
on.
motion that we accept the minutes for, June, what's the date?
June 16th.
June 16th, 2021.
Seconded.
I will point out there was a slight amendment. We had to
That's right.
modify David's membership from associate member to
Oh.
full member,
Different than the
so,
draft we got?
just, yes, just
Okay.
one word different,
Great.
so we revised
With,
that.
so as amended.
So as
I
amended.
change my motion to as amended,
And I seconded.
okay.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Tim Martin?
Aye.
Joe Sebastiano? Josie Kordahi?
Aye.
David Axberg?
Aye.
And we have deliberations. Does the board want to deliberate and wrap up West Birch Street tonight?
What do you guys feel like?
I think you could do, I mean, 8 Birch Street, the poor guy's been waiting forever.
I know.
Or that's
know.
my thought. If he's trying to make plans to
I'd
build something and,
Do we have a copy of the application with the,
yes, I have.
criteria on it?
There's so many challenges, you know, with everything.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if I wanna
and
make it
the,
any
and the
harder
town
than
didn't
it
give
is.
him any help there by
I
taking
mean,
half of
it-
his
It is,
property.
it is on here, yeah.
So look at this.
If
It
you
does
read here,
have
it's
it.
detailed.
Oh, I know.
It does, you'll,
Oh, yes,
like,
yes,
have
yes.
something, and then the next thing you know, you don't know what's under it, you know?
I thought there was a,
These numbers are from a long time ago, these numbers, I mean,
I
any
have-
revisions,
I
do you
have
think these
that-
setback numbers in the
that
hearing,
only
in the
joint
notice
plan.
hearing?
here we are.
And we had the driveway for years
numbers
going
should
back
be
and forth,
Stick.
and then when they did the survey, when I was getting, ex has when I was getting divorced,
Yes,
So
okay.
here's really what you're looking for.
they did the survey, they found out
Well,
that
you
we
can
didn't
just confirm the
own
numbers, I'll
all the
check
driveway.
here.
I
and
said,
we
we
can
have a
find-
three-car garage in the
But you guys
back.
wanna make sure these numbers match
But
up,
you can't
whatever.
get to it because
Yeah,
he
I-
didn't own the
What
driveway.
do we do with the driveway?
Let's
You
do
know?
some findings.
All right, good night, guys.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Have a good night,
Dan.
Dan. All right, so we're doing findings of fact for
Yeah, yeah, for,
8
What-
West Birch Road.
right,
I have a building permit plan.
right, well, obviously, the first finding is that we know the location of the property.
Exactly,
So that's the
yes,
first
he's
one.
not going anywhere, yeah.
Big Birchwood.
Right. Okay.
That's
As
on the
far-
lake,
As
isn't
far
it?
as any dimensions of this situation, it's very, are they plans that we can see?
We,
said
we
that
have
the
figures
garage
that we
was
can
really a
refer to,
boathouse.
that came part of his application.
Okay.
What
application.
challenges?
Oh my God.
I don't like to make things harder if you don't have
Is
to.
there anything
so
that's documented by a,
Topography
like
addendum.
sometimes you
Engineered
have,
survey.
yeah, anything like that?
Let them have their own screened-in
Appendix
porch.
one has a certified plot plan.
I've seen
Okay,
that
certified plot
design
plan, okay.
before for the walkways in Montreal.
Certainly.
So I could at
Yes.
least say the
Topography.
parcels on a
Actually
certified
use
plot
it
plan.
for
Right.
Fire
Got it.
lane.
How's it work?
Works great, but
Notice
nobody ever
map
uses it,
19
so
if
it's
you want
not
blocks.
used.
Yeah, I know, I'll get that, of course.
Okay.
Is it like a,
And
is
then,
there,
at
is
some
it a
point, we have to
curb and then,
mention
like,
the
is it step
fact
up
that
or-
So we have
dimensions of the
like,
property
it's like
and
a,
the fact that the
it's
right of
just an
way, the road.
extension, like
How
an
we gonna
opening
put
out
that
of
to
the
find
freeway,
The-
or parking, it's actually out of the parking lot. And
The
then
findings are the
it
the
goes
paved
around
road
the-
that
Right.
on two sides, the other sides are
does
parking
not
lots.
follow,
So the fire apparatus could
the,
go around
the
the
right of
whole
way
building.
is laid out.
They wanted a fire lane,
Okay.
but we didn't wanna put gravel in.
The
because we
paved
thought
roadway
gravel would
doesn't
be
follow
awful, so
the
we
limits
put
of the
this
right
in,
of way.
And it worked really
And it
well.
had a curb?
There's no curb. no.
Oh, it's just
It
flat?
does,
Yeah,
the,
it's
the
just
right of
flat.
way
Just-
is much
you can
larger
drive
than.
right
Right,
on
the
it.
paved roadway
Drive
doesn't
right around the
follow,
building
it's
on
within
that
it,
stuff.
but it
Yeah.
doesn't go to the extent of it.
In this
No,
plan,
right,
is
it doesn't
is
occupy
flat
the
or is
whole
there a curb?
right of way,
It's flat.
right, yep.
Okay.
Oh, the new one, the one that they're doing,
Got it.
there's a curb up,
Okay.
and then
In his plot plan,
I'm
does
not
it show
seeing
that right of way issue?
Maybe.
It shows it here
Right.
on figure 4. Yes, it shows it on the plot. plan.
Okay, so it's, so
On
in the
the-
certified plot
The
plan.
certified plot plan
Right.
shows that the, what I call the roof deck of the garage
Right, right,
is with,
right.
is wholly within the
Yeah.
right of way,
I don't even think I,
outside the paved area.
and I don't believe I need to even mention the garage in our finding of facts, that's
No, I don't
totally out of
think
it.
so
I'm just,
either.
I'm just dealing with the edge of the
Okay.
right of way and
Right.
how, what the distance is to his deck, for example.
You saw- I think you
I
said
think it was like a
half
foot
right?
or
You said?
half a foot,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's less than a foot, right, it's right
Yeah,
there.
right, right, yeah.
0.49 or something.
Yeah, it was,
It's like 0.6, right, so it's 50, he has the front setback of 50, it's 49.4, so it's only left over a 0.6.
right.
Okay, fine, but that's, we'd have to approve
0.8.
that. Huh?
0.8.
Oh, 0.8,
There
I'm
you go.
sorry, I'm sorry. 0.8.
Good job.
0.8. Well, actually, no, it's still, it's.
No,
only-
it's still 0.6, you're
Still
right.
0.6, but
Yeah.
it's 8 inches.
It's
yes,
8 inches.
Understood.
Inches.
Right.
Right, I can, so I could say 8 inches, but
There you
the
go.
bottom line is that we're gonna be approving a variance for this that says that, you know, he basically is chewing up the whole setback to be, we're still basing on the fact that he has the lot size situation.
The lot size,
Yeah.
yes.
Do we should acknowledge that the deck already exists? Is that no?
I don't know if they, I think it's, I don't think you have to, but
No, okay.
you
No,
can say it
okay.
exists or it's
We'll have
proposed.
to. Does it exist? Well, no, you might as well, that's an
I
existing
mean, you
deck,
can,
you know. He's gonna have to
Well,
get
he
it.
says
He'll
as,
get-
as he's keeping an existing deck.
Yeah, it's an
That-
existing deck.
okay,
Right.
He'll have to get his permit, you know,
Yeah.
get to the,
Okay.
right.
on the building side of it, get his permit and
Right.
get it inspected after the fact, but that's separate.
That's a separate thing.
So that's one of the variant deck. The other variance for the deck was on the side setback, right?
Yes,
And that was the difference of 25 feet, but he only has 12.9 feet.
right.
Right, so
Right.
I have that dimension.
The applicant spoke about the topography when we were out there, and we,
Yeah.
and the grade is difficult. One of some of the places you can put a deck,
Right.
be level,
So,
without substantial
right.
development.
I do have images here too.
Do we,
Okay.
should we be citing both topography and lot size? Can we do that?
I think shape, because.
Well, he
I
was,
would say
he,
shape.
he
Yeah,
said
I-
that his reasoning was the topography.
Right.
And he
Not-
said
not-
shape too,
The shape, they're both issues.
I
for
think
that.
shape was a big part of it for me, but,
Right.
Yeah, no, it is a big part of that lot.
you know,
I mean, that house is basically just cut into the hill, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And you got the circumference of the right of way.
Right, right.
And that picture doesn't really,
Yeah, it's the other side of the house anyway.
yeah.
That's
But I
it.
mean, it doesn't show, I mean, it doesn't, it's not a good
Yeah, but when you,
it's the slope out there.
yeah, when you step off that deck, you just look up a hill.
Yeah,
You're going straight up a hill. He said it was only 6 feet out to that hill from the side of the house.
no, I know.
This is the side and that's the slope up.
That's pretty steep back there. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like in the picture,
No,
but it's good to see.
But the
It's
other
pretty
reason-
dramatic.
But the other reason for the lot size, though, is also that he can't do anything back where he could build something because the septic's there already.
Right.
Well, the septic's over on the other side.
That's right,
Yeah.
but he can't go and
But
build
he
that
can't-
area. So the area he's
right.
being forced to build in is on all these encroachments.
Yeah.
Right. But I guess, knowing that, of course, the right-of-way, I know the roadway's far away from being in the right-of-way, but not many people put a deck on the front of the house that goes right to the edge of the right-of-way.
No, well, I mean,
Right,
so all, in the beginning, so
Yeah,
to speak,
Yeah,
he thought he bought a house
Right.
with the garage on his property.
so we should bring that into the finding of facts. We don't have to
Right.
talk about the garage necessarily,
I
but
mean,
just to
hon-
talk about the fact.
I mean, honestly, he bought the house thinking that his property probably was
Oh,
down
we know
here.
that, we were
Right,
there,
right.
right.
Yeah,
You know, some 40 feet away from there.
But since
Right.
buying the, and he says he has something to work on with his mortgage because they have a different type of survey.
Oh, sure.
But I was gonna say that based on the fact that he's discovered that the right-of-way, which isn't anywhere near close to the actual roadway, actually comes all the way up to his property the way it does. He's at a particular hardship now with this
he does, yeah.
existing deck.
The right of way doesn't typically extend that far back, you know, that's
Right,
very
right,
unusual.
Right, and I know there might be a future situation where that gets
Right.
fixed. But I think I have to somehow acknowledge, though, this really throws him into the need for this appearance for a variance, because he's learned that the right-of-way is totally encroached on what he thought was his property.
Right. Well, he also, you know, thought the garage was on his property, which
Right.
is not the case. And we were,
Right.
and the town's been assessing it as
Right,
a
right,
garage
right.
on his.
Well, I can still mention the garage if you want, I mean, but I don't know if it's necessary. I just
No,
wanna,
I mean,
I just wanna make sure I reference.
Maybe if you just, in terms of what he purchased, right?
So because of the slope goes up like here.
Right.
Correct.
His reasoning for both of these.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of back here.
He
is
can't go
because of that
anywhere,
slope.
right.
He can't go anywhere.
yeah, and he can't go where the
So,
septic
I
is.
mean, I
and
would keep to the slope thing, because that's
You're right.
really what
Yep.
he's asking for.
Yep.
Don't even worry about the setbacks, I mean, that's.
Well,
the
still, but we have to acknowledge the setback, though.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
gonna be-
you
only have 8 inches to the
acknowledge
front.
it, but that's not the hardship. The hardship's
Right.
really the
But
slope.
normally, we would deny a deck in front of a house that totally encroaches on the 50 feet.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, but we're not doing that here, we're setting a precedence.
Well, the garage is going away,
No,
correct?
the
That
garage
might
is
No,
sitting
have to
not
be
there.
yet.
worked out with the town.
He's
Oh,
still
so-
using it.
Oh, wow,
Right.
okay.
But is this unique enough that the fact is, you know, what's happened to him from the time he bought the house to what he's learned about the right of way to where he now has a deck? Even though he rebuilt the deck that used to be on top of the garage. I mean, I just wanna set a precedence that's negative here.
I think if you talk what David said about the slope,
about
and
the
and if
slope,
you,
yeah.
and if you use the shape,
Shape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the shape too, because
Shape
it's just
and
that-
slope.
It's just that, just picture this, a new applicant comes our way, right?
topography and, yeah.
Right. But a new applicant comes our way, right? He wants a deck like this, exactly like this. Right, he's got this non-conforming.
You gotta buy that house.
That's right.
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
There's only one, there it is.
Right, no, I agree. But the idea is that they came to us, they didn't have a deck at the moment, and they wanted to put a deck. Hey, say, there's a house down the road you approved the variance for,
Right.
right? But, you know, we wouldn't approve a variance like this normally.
Well, I think he meets several marks of the criteria.
He does.
for-
He does.
Right,
Yeah.
right, but even with meeting these criteria, if they didn't have that deck there right now, we couldn't.
Even if somebody
approve it.
comes in hypothetically, right?
Yeah.
This is, you're basing your decision on the facts of this case, right?
Right,
So-
so
Yeah,
I-
right,
the
right.
precedent is not really precedent,
not.
it's all isolated,
Right.
It's a,
No, I know.
it's kind of,
unless you say you
it
just.
should be a taboo word, actually.
Right,
You know,
when
you
it
know.
comes to these yeah, you're not really precedent.
Right, but this, like I said, this is the biggest encroachment variance I've ever been involved with in terms of, you know. and
Yeah,
this
you're,
is-
you're down to less than a foot.
Yes, exactly.
Well, have you come across somebody come in and all of a sudden they thought their garage,
This
Yeah,
first
right.
their
time-
house was all.
Right, so,
Yeah, he doesn't, he thought he owned that.
right, so that's, that's why I said finding of facts.
My
You know?
years
No, I
of
think
doing
it's fair,
engineering,
yeah,
I
it's-
only
it's
found
not-
one like this
It's
one
not hundred
time.
percent on point,
Yeah,
but.
you find encroachments, but you don't see it totally missing the mark.
Well, Bellingham I did, but
Yeah,
Bellingham
because
was a
technically, if
different,
this guy, if
a
this,
different scenario.
if this applicant came before us, he didn't have a deck there at the moment, and he has this right-of-way issue, we wouldn't allow him to put a deck there, you know, just based on the bylaws. You know, well, we're trying to deal with the fact that it's there now, and based on the extenuating circumstance that got him into this.
Well, I would
Did you
add
say
to
that he
it
was
too, that
being
we've also
taxed on
had the
this
same
whole time?
conversation about
He's been taxed on the garage,
accessory
yeah.
Okay,
structures
then,
in the
I
front
mean-
yard as
Right.
well, the F5A.
But that's up to the town,
even though
that's between him and the town.
I know, I know.
Falls
Not us.
further than it
But
could
Clearly, he
have,
did not.
You know,
Right.
it sort of, you know, opens that conversation as well.
Right, right, right. Okay, well, like I said, I can definitely, you know, again, work with that in terms of topography, and
Yeah.
I might, again, let me get it down, but it looks like I'm gonna have to
And we
acknowledge.
have to talk about the screen
screen
board,
porch now.
right, that was a very de minimis,
Yeah, it was very small,
less than a foot
that's correct. I'm
to
looking at the-
square off
Yeah, that's, it
The
says
existing-
0.8 feet, so it's under a foot.
the existing
Right, so we-
patio,
right.
pavement, whatever.
That was the dimension I didn't.
I appreciate David's point about the footings, but I think that they're, even like, if they're, you know, helical piers could probably just zip right in there
Right.
and really have no
Well,
burden or impact.
My concern was that he's trying to use a pad, the pad's gonna be gone if you have to put in
It
footings,
turns out,
but.
though, that
Right.
that pad, though, there's two corners that are only wooden deck.
Right.
Right? He's gonna need those, he's gonna put the footings right there.
That makes sense.
I was under the understanding that the garage isn't staying, but, you know.
That may end up
It's not
happening,
up to
that
him.
has to be worked out later on,
It's
though,
not
right?
up to
That's
him. He
outside
doesn't
of
own
this.
it.
That's right.
He's not keep the garage over anything here with us,
Yes.
right, so, and he has something else to work out, obviously.
Yeah, that's,
Right, right.
that's separate, but we had.
Yeah, that's a separate issue.
Well, he's more interested in the screen porch than the garage, let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like he's had to digest a lot over time with the house.
What is the setback?
I wonder if he has a view from there.
From the side yard, for the porch?
You must.
No,
He's like 6 inches off the
on
road,
the side, but to the front.
like 6 inches.
Yeah, where is the lake?
The
Oh,
setback,
right, that's
the
what it is.
setback
Or is
will
it
be
on-
about
I know he's
6
getting for a
inches
screen
off
and porch,
the
what they're
road.
looking at.
For the,
You
Oh,
want
you're
the
talking
deck
about
now?
the deck.
For the deck.
The deck
the
is.
deck,
It was
yeah,
8
but the
inches.
screen porch is,
It's 20, it's right here.
Is it not mentioning the front setback,
This is
is it?
24.
that's a side, but the,
For the screen and porch, he's not mentioning the,
He didn't mention it. Right. He didn't ask for that.
yeah. So I guess in here, maybe he needs a special permit though, but he's only rounding off, he's just continuing the front edge of the house with the screen and porch, right? So whatever the non-conforming,
He's really not extending any closer to the road.
that's correct, with the screen and porch.
Yeah, at all, not at all. The deck already's,
No, but I mean,
right.
even the
even the house.
Even the patio is not, he's not extending that further,
Forward.
he's not
No.
encroaching further on the,
right.
Did that require a special permit?
What's that? I'm sorry?
Had that required a special permit just to have the front of that screen and porch be some far away from the right of way, which I forget the distance at this point, is it, it's not 50 feet.
No, it's not.
Right, so that does violate the setback.
It does.
But it does, but we're rounding off the house, well, not rounding off, but we're continuing the edge of the house. But that would still be a special permit normally. At one time, we were talking whether there was another special permit required here.
no, I think I was considering a special
We're
permit
trying to-
that was a footing,
Right,
know.
just trying to see if it could fall as a special permit process.
as
not
opposed to a variance, right?
But the pad, I guess the question is if you're granting a variance for the deck that's closer than,
But the Creed service that he's looking for a variance on to finish the corner, he's not coming any closer and he's
no,
not,
he's not coming any closer.
there's no additional encroachment.
Right, but he's still kind of building a structure, right? 'Cause he's
But
gonna-
yeah, because it's, the pad's not considered a structure.
Not the pad, but the actual screen and porch itself is a
Right.
structure, right?
Right, and that's what he's
But
needing
that's
a
what he's
variance
Right.
on.
creating.
Right.
That's what he's
Right, right.
creating.
Right, so I guess we're debating now, did he need to validate that setback for that screen and porch?
He has for the side, it
Yeah.
just doesn't say it on the.
Maybe because he's not going any further, the house is still,
Right, and we normally allowed to, we're allowed to agree to that by special permit normally, right? If you just, like we just did this recently, we had this deck in the back, deck in the front.
you see what's odd about it?
Yeah.
He's got the way, because of the right of way being
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
the circumference of that,
Yeah,
he may be, because over here, you see how the road curves?
yeah.
The front of the house is here,
I'm
you got a
looking
pretty good
like
length
back
there.
in
It's,
February,
Yeah,
if
right.
there was
Right.
anything else.
It's awfully
It
close.
gets a little close, yeah, you're right.
but
Right, but how do we acknowledge that though? I mean,
I think we should, if we're apt to, we would just give him the relief to construct, give him the variance to construct on that footprint.
I suppose you could try to word it in terms of the deck plus the screen and porch. Is that what you're thinking?
do we normally
Yeah.
consider the deck separate from the,
What's that?
we can only consider the deck separate from the home? He says the deck will be separate from the home. There's actually space,
Separate.
right,
Yeah, we can do it separate.
No,
Oh.
but I'm saying, but in our case, you're talking about having, this is a continuation of screen and porch
Oh.
deck. His deck, I think, is gonna be totally separate. I think he's gonna have actually space between the screen and porch deck, if I'm correct. I mean, it's just it's a distance of some sort, but, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the screen-in porch
The
doesn't
deck is
go.
not like attached to the house, like, you know, nothing's abutting the
If you
house.
look here though, they look attached, but I can't, they look attached.
The new deck is gonna,
They do look attached, unless he's putting in a footbridge, I mean, I don't know, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I wasn't saying footbridge, I was thinking that the deck was gonna stand alone from everything. You know, like you just step across or whatever it is, or step, it's like, it's very small, just,
Wow.
I'm just saying, I don't picture the deck is actually attached to the house, it's just a mention.
Maybe, yeah, maybe it's true, I don't know.
Well, I remember this from from the site visit, we discussed where the deck was kind of on its own. You know, you would obviously leave the screen porch and go out to the deck if you want to.
yeah, but they're, I mean, I know they're not attached to the house, but they're gonna be abutting each other, right? I mean, you're gonna go from the screen porch to the deck,
Okay.
on that one section, right? And then
And that deck is on top of that garage.
that,
No, it
Deck.
was, it's not
What
anymore.
you're saying by approving the deck, we're
Oh, yeah, I
giving
see.
him the relief he needs in the front.
for the screen and porch,
Okay.
that's what I was thinking, but I don't know if that makes sense.
Where is the road here?
There's nothing that says that the building department's gonna be okay with leaving.
Oh,
this
it's-
deck. A lot of times they'll have to
This is,
expose
the road is
things
down
like
here.
footings or
And there's the
property.
existing garage.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah, they're still gonna,
So
they're still
if you
gonna
go out
inspect
there,
this
you're gonna
whole-
tr- that,
They may
you
come
know,
back and
this
have
is
some
what you're talking
comments that
about.
we didn't cover here.
Right away is up here.
Right, but on the,
Wow, I
but I mean,
don't
on
know,
the
I don't
stone
know how
with
to
the board
extend it
with
up
the
there,
deck,
yeah.
you know.
Look how high up that, the right of way is.
Well, yeah,
The deck itself
All the way up
has to
here.
be considered a
Oh,
structure,
yeah.
whether it's attached or not.
right. Yeah, 'cause I mean, obviously you don't want people falling through it if they, too many people on.
Yeah,
It still has to meet
the-
building code, so if it's got enough rise, it would probably need railings and things like that.
I think the variance should allow him to, if we're gonna grant the variance for the screen porch, I'll grant it so that he can build what he's proposing to build.
Right, yeah,
I-
again,
I
and
don't
that's the
know
way
if
I'm
I
gonna,
have to get into the detail of,
that's the way I'm gonna write it up. I'm gonna write it up as the 3 variances for the reasons that we have here.
Trying to do.
3 variances,
Create the wiggle,
that
create the
will,
breadth, the space.
variances, or whatever else relief he needs to build what he's proposing.
So,
I
Try to
mean,
do it so you can, yeah.
Let them do it.
Let 'em do
Right,
it.
I don't wanna have him go to the building
Yeah,
department, and it's not
right,
clear.
Right, not come back. I So, you know, what he's requested does the trick, so to speak, right? He doesn't need anything more than this.
Right.
I mean, it
That-
might come back, I don't know.
But that's why I'm saying, if we grant him the relief requested and relief to build what he's proposing, just that additional language.
I think it's worth a shot at that.
Somebody wants to appeal it.
Yeah.
well, it would
Right.
depend if he came back because of something the building inspector says, like, you know, you need a special permit for this one part. So would that be it, you know?
No, I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world, right?
No, I'm saying, no,
No.
would that be it? You come back and say, oh,
No.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
everything's working out great, but I needed
Yeah.
one more thing from the
Right.
board. And we, obviously, we would discuss it. I mean, I wouldn't have had a problem granting a special permit for the screen porch that's flush with the front of the house, you know? The only issue is that, you brought up a good point, that right of way makes the distances of the front yard vary even from the front of the existing house to where the front of the porch is, which is a whole nother story.
Hmm.
He's not encroaching more into it by doing that, but
No.
yet he's
He might
already
be a
out
little
of
bit- If you go
compliance.
by it right
Exactly,
away, exactly the
yeah.
way it's drawn, he might be slightly
Yeah,
encroaching just a little
maybe
bit.
slightly, maybe.
Yeah, but I think let's, on the criteria, that we should go through that all, in terms of like, where he, you know, meeting the criteria for a variance. Now, I can go over the criteria just one time, right, for the variance, just cover anything that needs to be, you know,
Sure.
covering each of the different. It's still one decision, 3 variances.
So
Yeah, it's,
three
I'm writing,
sep-
this is- yeah,
one-
we're granting 3 variances if
Three
that's the
variances.
decision. I mean, we have to vote here tonight, but that's. Yeah, I can
It's
tell
like,
you.
it's just like
Yeah, I'm
being
sorry.
impossible in other towns.
Yeah, I have all this
you
online
know,
too, I
so
don't,
they
I
have
know,
to kind
have it all
of maybe
pulled up.
change them to
It
special
should be in
permits or
the
something.
application.
Well,
Maybe you
some
can pull
of
it up
this
to,
could be-
Stephanie, in
by
the
special
application,
permit.
Yeah,
when it goes
I
over the
mean,
criteria for a
It's
variance.
getting to be a lot, you know?
I have it all
Yeah,
here.
we might have a handy copy here.
It's on this.
That's what all
Just
this
to
Word document is.
streamline it a little more.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'll never forget.
Yeah, so he talks about shape and topography.
Okay, yeah,
You did a pretty,
thorough.
He did a good,
Yeah,
he did a good job.
yeah.
right.
this
So
quick.
that's his explanation of structure, right?
Yep.
And you have the circle, okay, so, you gotta read number 2? I know your scrolling doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like all clunky.
Just in the findings, we do have 2 letters of support
Okay, yes.
from
Two different abutters.
2 different,
Two
yeah.
abutters.
I won't say their addresses, but.
And then we also had, that other individual who is, I believe on, is it Shear Street, who spoke for
Yeah, he did speak
Mr.
for him at-
Beveridge, but in sympathetic tone to the zoning issues that exist in that area.
That wouldn't apply, he didn't speak during this hearing, though.
He actually did.
Oh, okay.
um,
Oh, he's
Yeah.
online, he was online at the
Yeah,
time, okay.
so there was 2 written ones, but then
Right.
he's the new butter on the top of the hill.
Yes,
But he's in a butter, though, right?
Yeah.
yes,
Okay. Could you send me that name later?
absolutely.
Okay, yeah. In fact,
Can
and
actually
confirm the
get it
2,
for
and
you.
confirm the 2 letters for me, too.
What,
Yep,
Give me the letters
the
right
one
now.
letter
Why
was
don't I-
Joseph
I'm gonna take
Karen
that from you.
Gilio.
Yeah, I'll give you the letter right now. That way you have it.
The name on
I
the
have
letter.
the 2 letters, I just needed who the abutter is up on the hill.
Yep, so the one abutter is Joseph Karen Gilio, or Joseph and Karen Gilio, and then the other one is Troy Varner, VAR.
Oh, wait, is that the letter you're talking about?
Those are the two emails.
Okay, I have those.
yeah, they're
Okay.
tiny.
The abutter now who spoke at Zoom hearing,
Right,
who's that person?
He was the abutter to the guy with the garage,
yep, I'll have his name in a
Right.
second.
yeah. But he spoke in sympathy toward,
Right,
Right.
the issues and challenges
Yeah.
of the zoning.
He was
district.
actually reversed. He was for this, and he
Yeah.
spoke for the
oh,
other
is that
one.
what it was? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. We
But-
can get it off the list.
Right, but he spoke during the hearing as, in support of the application,
Correct.
all right, and we had no other opposition during the hearing, of course, that's another
There was no
finding.
opposition.
Yeah, no
No,
opposition.
Right, right.
He
No, I
spoke,
agree.
right, he spoke in favor of
Okay,
5
yeah.
Lakeshore
Yeah, so
Drive.
I'll just confirm that point with
As
Stephanie.
well as this.
Right,
Yep.
right.
Right,
Yeah.
so we should
His
go over
name
this one.
was Doug Oster, O-S-T-E-R,
O-S-T-E-R,
or O-S-T-L-E-R.
L-E-R, got it,
Apologies.
Arthur. Doug,
Yes.
okay. Good, okay, support. About zoning. Got it. All right, so on this here, I mean, do we need to read this out loud during the hearing?
You could just make reference to it and put it into the record if you want.
Yeah, I want to put in the record what he's actually has submitted, so
Okay.
it's a very long write-up he has for both number 1 and number 2. Do we need to read them during the hearing, or just that we accept that he has,
You're
I
gonna,
think he's provided significant
yeah,
you're gonna,
response to the questions.
in terms
and
of, you're just
criteria.
gonna use that for your finding of
Findings.
facts, is that
that's
what you're
correct,
saying?
yeah, our finding of facts are what he submitted for the criteria
For
requirements
substantiation.
of the request for variance.
Correct, that's all you need to do.
Right, and then that we will, this obviously ends up in the decision,
And that will be incorporated into the decision.
that is correct. Just finish, go down 3 and 4 for me, real quick.
We wanna have take
We have to take a vote.
a vote
Yeah,
on
so-
each individual request, or the application as a whole.
Can we make a
Yep.
motion for all 3 to be approved, or do you do one at a time?
In this case, you probably could do all 3 if you want. It's up to
Right.
you. I mean, I
From
think
a, from a filing and recording perspective, we still would need the separate decisions for all 3, or would it be allowed to have one single
gonna
write-up
do-
for?
just do one write-up
Yeah,
for all
okay.
3 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's only one application.
yeah. So
Or,
it's gonna be-
well, separately, like, John Beveridge at 5 Lakeshore Drive had 2 different decisions, 2 different documents.
So he had the special permits plus the
Right.
variance. This is all variances, so
Right.
we'll keep it
Yeah,
all.
okay.
These are the ones I hate writing out. It's just so intense to write these up, but yep, we do it for a good reason. All right, so I'll make a motion that we accept the applicant's, make a motion that we approve, or grant, right? That we grant the 3 variances applied for by David Jondrel for 1 variance to allow the construction of a screen porch on an existing concrete pad which does violate the side yard setback requirement of 25 feet by 0.8 feet, and 2 variances for the purpose of keeping an existing deck that was built without a permit, which does violate the side yard setback requirement of 25 feet by 12.9 feet, and which does violate the front yard setback requirement of 50 feet by 49.4 feet. The property located at 8 West Birch Street, Assessors map 19, block 66, lot 5, in the R3 zoning district. Need a second?
Is there a second?
Oh, I second it.
Okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
It has to be a roll call
Roll
vote.
call vote.
Tim,
Mr. Grant?
Joe Sebastiano,
Grant.
Josie Kordahi,
Yes, to grant.
David Axberg.
Yes to grant.
That's 4 unanimous, yes to grant.
Have any conditions?
Yeah, the conditions, I should have mentioned that. Obviously, we normally just say that construction debris need to be removed after 30 days. Any lighting that's added to the structure needs to not go on to other people's property, which would be very hard with a hill out there.
Yeah.
Right, so I'll put those two normal conditions in. I can't think of any other conditions.
Abide by the building, code and I guess the building inspector.
Yeah,
You know, the
with
inspector has to
all-
approve all of that.
with all
In fact, he'll get
permits.
inspected for this. His deck might have to be adjusted in some way if he sees anything. As well as, the only thing we would say is, do any plans need to be submitted with the town? Any as-built or anything? Or is that just normal anyway? If he needs a building permit for this.
Oh, yeah, no, he needs
He's
to.
gonna have to do a plan.
Yeah, we should have an
for the-
as-built
for the-
plan when he's done.
Yeah, he's gonna
I'll
have
just
to
put
do
in that an
something.
as-built plan needs to be on file with the town. So that'll be the three conditions. The 30 days the debris has to be gone after construction. The no lighting on the neighboring properties, and the as-built plans need to be on file with the town. If that's okay with everybody.
Sure.
And comply, I mean, I suppose the fourth about the permits. I mean, I think it's understood, but he's gotta apply for his building permits.
He has to file, yeah, he has, all according to a building permit. And I also would encourage that the applicant and the inspector's office inspect sooner the safety issues, because chances are they're using that deck today, and we don't wanna see someone get hurt.
So we want to condition that?
I don't want a condition, I'm just making
Okay.
a comment, but we do want to condition it on, actually,
On the permits.
on the permit.
All right, so how would I word that condition then for the permits? That he,
All work, all work done to date to be inspected and approved.
Right.
And any proposed work will be done according to a permit.
and new work would be,
All necessary.
Subject to a permit.
approved permits.
You could almost make a condition that no building of the new screen porch structure can go into effect until the previous one was approved.
Until the deck's been
Until
approved.
the deck,
Yeah, I
until the
know-
deck
I like
is
that.
approved,
I know
just
also-
because if all of a sudden they have to tear that down and redo something,
right.
How about
their
including
expenses
language,
might be gone.
including language for pre-construction,
Yeah, there you go.
or pre-construction, site visit or,
Right.
Inspection.
walkthrough
Yeah.
with the.
Pre-construction
Yeah.
inspection.
So there'll be a fourth, or I mean, one of the four will be pre-construction, right,
Yep.
condition. All work done to date needs to be inspected and approved,
Yep.
right? And all additional work subject to obtaining approved permits.
Correct,
Yeah.
Approved permit or permits.
right.
Yeah, I think with the building department sort of being familiar with their process, it's probably, it's wise for.
No, that's very smart.
both
Thank you.
the homeowner and
Yeah.
the inspector to sort of go out,
Mhm.
be in agreement of the project that's,
Yeah, he has our variance approval at hand at that point.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a great one. Thank you for
Yeah.
helping clarify. I think that's good.
Yeah, I agree.
I just gotta do all the work.
Yeah, I mean, the building department is here to help people, and it's a big part of it. I go back to safety. So, if you're gonna build something, see the building department, pull the permit. They should be there to help you, so that you can get it done properly and, not just for variance issues, but really for safety. And that's what it's really all about.
You wanna give me these while you have them?
Sure, well, all
I'll
yours.
take these.
Did you vote, did you make a motion? I'm gonna-
We
did.
did.
All those
Yeah,
conditions,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right, good.
Conditions. we
I know it's
don't
getting
need a
late.
motion. We don't need a motion for the conditions.
All right.
And we need a motion to close the hearing.
Yeah, do we normally,
Do we?
we-
Oh, you already closed the hearing, that much?
no, we didn't close the hearing, did we? No, we didn't close the
We
hearing.
haven't closed the hearing. Well, we
Oh,
closed the
boy,
hearing
I
on
don't
that,
know.
we didn't
I don't
close
know.
this,
The
but I think we should make a motion, if you're willing to, go as chairman instead of fill-in chairman.
Yes.
Well, do we wanna wait, we might have a, we might have a new board member in a few weeks.
So, what was, just quick update, so you do have interested individual
Okay.
who, will be before the select board on the 20th of July. So what I thought we would do, presumably, hopefully it all goes well, he gets, accept that, he gets
Okay.
appointed, then on your meeting the next day, the 21st, you can do your organization,
Okay.
all
Cause
right?
that person's name may be chairman.
Just coincidentally, that'd
Just
be his last name.
coincidentally, they're named chairman.
Yeah. So, just a slight bit ahead, but the next meeting of it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I, reading through the minutes, I was like,
Yeah.
when do we make him chairman?
We'll wait and see.
There you go, all right.
Or clerk.
Or clerk.
But you still have two openings, so,
Yeah, we need more volunteers.
so you still have
We need more
associate
volunteers.
members.
That's,
And also
Just a
conservation,
reminder.
different,
Yep.
different department in our office, I mean, well,
if anybody's out there that would like to join the zoning board of
Yes,
appeals or
please.
conservation commission, please reach out. We have vacancies and we're eager to fill them.
yeah. Understood.
All right, so we can close the meeting.
Do we have a motion to
Public
close,
service and
close the meeting?
I second,
Oh, no, you can make the motion.
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
excellent.
Good night, everyone.
10:31.
Have a nice Fourth of July holiday.